Today's episode is presented by our friends at Huel. Use code Mariana for our exclusive offer at Huel.com.
And when he got there, just pulled a shotgun out on him and just tortured him, beat him. And there's video of the video. There's a video of us doing this.
What did you do?
He kicked him in the face a bunch, hit him with the gun a bunch, split open his face. There's a scene in the video that was used as evidence where he's like holding blood, because I was like, if you bleed on my carpet, I'm gonna kill you. So he like just was holding his blood in his hand. So
how old was this kid?
He was 19. I was 17.
So today with me on the podcast, I have the man who inspired the story behind American History X. For people who don't know, it's the unforgettable Hollywood film with Edward Norton that should have won him an Oscar, but for Best Performance. But unfortunately, he was nominated at the same time as Roberto Benigni from La Vita Bella. Do you remember that year?
I do remember. And,
yeah, he was an incredible performance.
And that's only just a rumor. By the way. That all came through like TV interviews.
This is all over the internet.
I know.
The fact that you had spoken to a producer and the story was inspired by your event.
I've never said that ever. If anyone could ever point where I have ever said American History X is about me.
Well, I promoted you on my social media as such. Yeah. So I am part of the lying media.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, there's times that I've done interviews about like the, white supremacists in our policing, and 2 days of full on interviews with people from different media outlets. Never even talked about American History X. And then the tagline of the head of the story is American History X guy is, and I'm like, we never
talked about this.
I don't think to ever have to always have to tell people, that's just a rumor.
Right.
And there are many coincidences. And I can't understand.
But there's a lot of parts in that story, even because I know your story already, that are very similar to your own story, whether they inspire themselves in your story or not. Had your book come out at the time already?
No, my book came out afterwards, which even in my autobiography, I say American History X isn't about me. So in my own autobiography, I say it. So
when you watched the movie, though, were there parts of the movie that you thought this is so similar to my own story?
And that's how it all started. Right when the movie came out, hard copy, they knew of my story because they'd been asking me to do an interview about my story for like 2 years because I had already been out and doing all this work. And then American History X came out and they were like, look, why don't you come out? Because people are telling us this is your story. Yeah. And then I just was like, well, I'll tell you my story. And hard copy started it. Their first ever interview with me outside of being a white supremacist was on hard copy because I was working for a hockey team, the Philadelphia Flyers at the time, doing inner city sports with kids, so that was kind of what the gist of the story was about. And anyhow, that's how it started. It just started.
Well, I apologize to our viewers and listeners if I fell into that narrative, but it's still completely regardless. Your story, your life story is fascinating. And I think you have so much to teach us as well that I've known you for a while. I've interviewed you before. I've done stories also on white supremacy. And I wanted to have you on the podcast. And I know that a lot's been happening with your life as well.
Yes, amazing.
But to just sort of summarize the stuff that we'll be talking about real quick. I mean, you were recruited by neo-Nazis at 13. A few years later, while still a teenager, you kidnapped a man, beat him, filmed it, and then eventually went to prison. And then that's the part that most people don't talk about is what happened next. And that's also where all the stuff that I wanted to get into. But anyway, I have to introduce you first.
Yes.
Frank Meeink.
Thank you.
Welcome to The Hidden Third.
Thank you.
So tell me about growing up in Philly, right?
Yeah, I grew up in South Philly, a rough Irish Catholic neighborhood. My mom was a drug addict, alcoholic, who left my dad, who lived in a different neighborhood. My dad was Italian. His last name was Bertolini. So anyhow, when my mom moved back to the Irish neighborhood with me as a little kid, I was known as Frankie Bertolini, and then they took my last name away and gave me Meeink. And there's tons of reasons why my family said it happened. But what was told to me as a kid was, they didn't want me having a Dago name in an Irish neighborhood because that's how much they fought with each other.
Right. A Dago, is that
that's a slang for
slang
Italian.
for Italian?
Yeah.
That's where sometimes my not growing up in the US, there's like a lack of knowledge on my part on like slang, for example.
Yes.
So that was sort of it's a derogatory term for Italian.
Yes.
So they changed your name to Meeink, which at the time you didn't know what it was. Or where it was from.
Yeah, it was we didn't know. Yeah. But I remember knowing that like Meeink wasn't Irish, and people were like, as long as it's not Italian, anyway, that's you could be whatever. You could be last name Box. We don't care as long as it's not Italian. It's kind of the funny joke that I used to hear as a kid growing up.
And then your mom got together or married man who was very violent, right?
Yes, my mom had boyfriends off and on. Some I liked, some I wasn't very fond of, but I kind of liked having a man around because my dad wasn't really around. And then she married a man when I was about 9 or 10. And he came in my home and he used to say things about me being Italian too. He used to tell me he was going to beat the Italian out of me. And he used to try. Oh, wow. It was not, I try to tell people the violence and the way that I felt as a kid going home is that I used to wish to get hit by a car. Oh, wow. Coming home from school because I was always grounded. Yeah. And I didn't want to die. In South Philly, everyone gets hit by cars. It's like, because we live on these little small narrow streets and it's always a family member or a second cousin that runs you over, so you can't do anything about it. But I just remember like when I used to come home from school, I was like, I want to get hit by a car so I don't have to go home. I didn't want to die. I wasn't like looking to commit suicide here. I just was like, if I get hit by a car, maybe tonight I can go to a hospital and just lay in a hospital bed and watch a Flyers game. Right. And not be.
Wow, that's so crazy. Because what was it like at home then? Like, what would be a day that you would come back from school and then what would happen?
Well, I couldn't talk because if I talked, if I talked, he used to say, dumbasses like me would ruin his appetite. And I had to walk around on eggshells all the time. I wasn't allowed to talk to my mom. If I talked to my mom in a separate room, he would always say, what'd he say? And I could be talking to my mom about anything. And he would be like, what'd he say to you? And she'd be like, he just asked me about this. Well, why didn't he ask me? And, like, it just was this ongoing. I hated life as a kid. I just hated living in that home.
Why was he so hateful? Why was he like this?
An alcoholic, drug addict who his dad used to beat the crap out of him, And it's that family disease of alcoholism. Yeah. It's very prevalent where I come from. And there's even a funny thing where people say like, someone will tell me about their dad and I'll be like, oh, like how mean that their dad was. And I was like, oh, was he an alcoholic? And they're like, no, but his dad was an alcoholic. Right. So it's like this family disease. Cycle
of violence. Right.
And so that's just, he just hated my guts. He used to tell me how much he hated me and that I was just a kid, and I was always grounded. So when I was grounded up in my room, like that's what I came home was up in my room. But the only time I got to be with my friends was at school. So I acted up at school. And I used to get in a lot of fights and I used to get suspended a lot. And I was anyone even pushed me the wrong way, I fought. I used to fight a lot. Yeah.
That's what you're learning at home, right? And then you have to take it out somewhere.
Yeah. And no one could ever hit me as hard as he hit me.
Right.
So when I got in a fight with another kid, they get hit me and I learned how to take a punch, and that's the same thing because eventually my stepdad gets me kicked out of my house.
Wait, did your mom ever defend you or did she ever step in to defend you or anything?
My mom she would sometimes pull him off of me and she would yell at him right then and there. She'd be like, John, knock it off. You're going to kill him. And, and then I would go up to my room, beaten, black eye, whatever he did to me. And my mom, I would hear her downstairs say things to him like, you can't beat him like that, John. You shouldn't do that, whatever. And he'd be like, well, he gave me a dirty look. And that was a severe beating a couple of times because I might have just looked at him the wrong way. And that's really worth a bunch of my whoopings.
Or you probably didn't do anything, but he just felt like beating you.
Yeah. He threw a remote control at me one time at my head. Because my mom said to me, if I walked her to the store, because we had to go to the grocery store, and I walked back with the groceries with her, I could watch a Flyers game. That was always my goal in life, was to watch a Flyers game. It's a hockey team.
Okay, thanks for telling me, because I was obviously no idea what you were talking about.
Their stadium was right by my house. So anyhow, I remember I came home and my mom said I could put the Flyers game on, and we got home and it was right in time. I put the game on. He was passed out on the couch, drunk, passed out. I started helping my mom put the groceries away, and the Flyers game was on in the background. I could hear the announcers talking about the game coming up, and then I heard the thing change to Jeopardy. So I didn't even know he was awake. And so I turned to look because I heard the game get turned off. And he threw a remote control at my head and was like, he gave me a dirty look and he thinks he runs this house. And my mom was like, I told him he could put the game on. This was one of those great moments, not great, but a good moment to explain. My mom yelled at him because she said, I told him he could put the game on. Mm-hmm. And my mom said, go upstairs. So now I don't even get to watch the game. And I go upstairs in my room and I hear my mom telling, like, I told him he could put the game on. Well, he gave me this look. And I'm waiting for my mom to come upstairs and say, hey, come down, put the game on. It's okay. And she comes upstairs and screams at me for giving him a dirty look. That's how I lived.
Wow. I am so sorry. That sounds so awful.
That's right. I mean, it is what it is now.
Mm-hmm. So my life can be very, very crazy at times. I'll be going from calls to meetings to recording this amazing podcast to packing and traveling, unpacking and traveling again. It can be nonstop every single day. And during those days, I barely have time to stop and eat, let alone cook a full meal. Huel Black Edition has been a huge game changer for me. 30 seconds and I have a full meal in my hand. Now, I'm someone who almost never eats breakfast. I just don't have the time. And this actually fixes that. It's also been great post-workout or honestly, anytime you're trying to eat better without the effort. Ready to drink, 35 grams of protein, 27 essential vitamins and minerals, gluten-free, no artificial sweeteners, colors, or flavors, and under $5 a bottle. You're not finding a better meal for that price anywhere. And what genuinely surprised me, I stayed full for hours. Not a few minutes, but hours. So if you're trying to stay consistent, this combo makes it stupidly easy. New customers go to Huel.com/Mariana and use code Mariana for 15% off. Limited time only. And after checkout, fill out the post-checkout survey. It directly supports the show. Thank you to Huel for partnering with us. And then he got you kicked out of the house. How? Like, why?
I got in trouble at school one day, and then my school's only like 2 blocks. It's Philadelphia. So schools are close to your house. And I was in 8th grade at the time. And I got kicked out of school for the day. So they sent me home. And you always had to go right home to school in my neighborhood because everyone would rat you out. If like someone see me outside of school during school hours, someone's going to call somebody in my family, so like just dry snitch on you. Hey, I happened to see Frankie during school hours, blah, 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 you know? So you always had to go right home. And so I just went home. And I guess school had called my house and said, we're sending Frank home. And my mom left because John was going to discipline me. And I came walking in and he hid behind this like little thing. And I didn't see him when I first walked in, and he just dropped me, sucker punch, just dropped me, and then drug me up the steps, beating the crap out of me, telling me, you better pack all your shit. You're going to move with your dirty Dago father. And that's what he did. He brought me upstairs and he was telling me about how much my mom hates me, that my mom hates me and wants me out of the house. Like there was something really wrong with him when it came to me. And other people too. He had anger issues with other things too, but never with my mom though. Because my mom was a South Philly tough girl, you know what I mean, who would just hit him upside the head with a bottle. You know? But he hated my guts. And so anyway, he's dragging me up the stairs. And then when we got upstairs, I had an ET lamp that my aunt gave me. And I loved ET. This is how long ago this was. And he tried to bash me upside the head with the ET lamp. And afterwards, he said he just threw it. But he threw it in my direction while I was trying to grab some clothes. And he was like, pack your stuff. You're moving with your father.
Right.
And I remember like felt really bad, but I also felt such a sense of freedom. Like, okay.
Did you go and live with your dad, by the way?
I did.
Can I ask you a question? What happened to your mom and your stepfather? Where are they now? Do you know?
My stepdad died. He abused his body long enough through drugs and alcohol. And
did you ever have a chance to have any sort of, I don't know.
I whooped his ass when I got out of prison.
Oh, did you?
I did. He tried to start a fight with me one day and still thought I was a little child. And I was a man by then. And
you beat him?
Didn't go well in front of my family, which was not good. But
yeah, I mean,
I was also now drinking, and drugs and alcohol were also now part of my story. But he started a fight with me in front of him, and he's talking down to me, and I was like, I'm not the one anymore.
Yeah, I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah, and I split his face. I split his face open, and my sisters, because he never hit my sisters, which were his children through my mom. He he would say really mean things to them, called them whores and nasty. He was just a really mean guy.
An awful person.
And my sister said, because my sisters they hated me for a minute after I beat their dad up in front of them. I get it. That's their dad. That's their Superman. No matter what, they don't know. And so, but years later, my sister said that when he used to scream at them nasty things, they used to look at the scar on their face and go, my brother did that to you. So,
yeah.
So no, but
you left him with a scar. Wow.
So he died, and my mom died of a fentanyl overdose in 2016.
Oh, no way.
But my whole neighborhood was addicted to Xanax. There was like murders. My cousins, people I know 3 people alone who committed murders on Xanax and didn't even really remember it.
Wow.
And Xanax were like a huge market in my neighborhood.
Wait, I've been to Kensington in Philadelphia. Is that close to where you grew up at all? Yeah. Right, because now it's a horrible trank dope epidemic. It's fentanyl mixed with xylazine, and it's where you see all the zombies, the videos, which is a horrible way of calling these people.
My sister was one of those.
She was.
And she's clean now. So.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, she's clean.
One of the few ones. Okay, so you left your house. You were kicked out. You went to live with your dad, and then what happened? What happened when you were around 13? I mean, how did the neo-Nazi recruitment start?
So I moved to my dad's, and then because it takes a little bit, went to my dad's, who lived up in Southwest West Philly, which is mostly all black. My dad had this bar that was a tavern in the neighborhood, and it wasn't always sunny at that bar. It was
not always sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah. So,
was he a nice guy? Did you get along with your dad?
I mean, my dad was very just not in existence. Like, my dad was always at the bar. So, and we lived definitely way underneath the poverty line where my dad, and my dad put me in a local school by his house because he had to get me in school. It was the middle of the school year because I got beat up when I left school, and I was still in school year left. So my dad had put me in a school called Pepper Middle School. So if anyone ever wants to look it up, just know Pepper Middle School. It's now been closed. And I went to this school, and it was all black. And there was about 20 of us, not 20%, just about 20 white kids.
Wow.
And I was a new kid, showed up middle of school year, kind of a punk rock skater athlete kid. So I drew attention to myself, and that got me in some more fights probably maybe than some of the other kids, because I was, just definitely looked different than a lot of the other white kids that went there. And was an athlete, was on sports team. Like I joined the sports teams right away at that school. And that summer I got to get out of the city. My uncle, who lived in the Bucks County, Lancaster County area, which is all Amish. I was close with my cousins, and I was going to go up there and spend the summer with him. And the summer before, I spent the summer up there with him too. And he was very much into punk rock, skateboarding, and that type of scene. And so I couldn't wait to go up there because, again, I was a little bit punk rock, a little bit alternative skateboarder kid. And when I went up there that summer, he was not part of that anymore. He was part of this group. And he was only 15.
Right. So you walked into his room, right? Describe like what you saw and when you first saw him, like what had changed.
Well, I walked, he wasn't home when I first got there. I always remember this. I walked up into his room, and there was like a swastika on the wall. And then there was these newspaper articles he had pinned up in like wallpaper to the wall about neo-Nazi skinheads. And it had the article about the Geraldo thing had just happened.
Geraldo Rivera had done a report about white supremacy, right?
And he had a show, and there was a fight on the show. It was like one of the first, it's what Jerry Springer built his whole career, because that show skyrocketed the Geraldo show because there was an actual fight live on television between these neo-Nazis and some black activists, some other activists, and some anti-fascist kids that were in the crowd. So it was like this major deal that happened. And so that had just happened. So he had wallpapered the newspaper articles about that. And so I just remember, and there was like a picture, he had like some Hitler stuff. And
Did you know what any of this was? I mean, I guess you probably knew what Hitler was. You knew the swastika. You knew what this was.
I knew what the swastika was. I didn't know what neo-Nazis. I remember not knowing what the word neo-Nazi meant. I remember that because I was like, what is it? Because I was thinking like neon colors, That's what I was thinking. I was a kid. So he comes home and he looked different. The summer before, he had like the fin that went straight in the air, the punk rock fin. I mean, he was real punk rock. And so and I had so much fun with him the summer before. And he comes walking in and his head shaved bald and he's wearing different clothes, like not ripped up, like punk rocky clothes. Like it was just normal jeans with like a collared shirt. And, just he looked different. And so I remember asking him like what some of this stuff meant. Cause I remember like my grandfather and stuff, they had, I watched the old war movies with them and they've been in the military and this was the bad guy that everyone talked about. Right. So I remember saying like, what's up with this? Like, does grandpop know about this, that type of stuff? Or and he started to tell me that like Hitler was actually a good guy and that he was actually for the white race. And the only reason why we only hear bad things is because they lost the war, but Hitler had good ideas, that type of thing. And it might've been like, he might be a little bit a bad guy, but he dressed well, that type of stuff, What happened was all these neo-Nazis used to come over and hang out at his house. My aunt and uncle, who were really good people. And I always want to say they just let their son go through phases because he was angry that he got taken out of South Philly. So they let him go through some phases, the punk rock phase and just whatever, And so they just thought this was like a phase thing. But I can just tell you that when I sat up in his room and these older neo-Nazis would come over and they used to climb up on his balcony and they'd come in that door, but a lot of times they like climbed up on the balcony and whatever. And they would come drink and bring beer. And sometimes they brought girls and they had tattoos and they had cars and they were cool. And they talked about fighting and they talked about, the beliefs and they talked about the anti-fascist groups and the sharps. And these are, anti-racist groups that they would fight against. And I just remember when they would talk about black people, I knew that they had like no idea what they're talking about. Because they live up in an all Amish country.
Right. So they had no contact with black people.
Yeah.
But you did.
Yeah, I did. And so when they would ask me, and it's in the conversation somehow, my cousin would say like, yeah, you want to talk about what it's like? Talk to my cousin. He lives in one of the worst neighborhoods in Philly. And it was one of the worst neighborhoods in Philly. My school, again, was horrible. So these guys would start talking to me, and even the girls sometimes, which was cool, would talk to me about what's it really like. And what that did to me was, look, I gave you an example of both my parents. If I walked in my house, my dad or my mom's, and I had a trophy or a black eye, I never heard, hey, son, where'd you get that? How'd you get that? Are you okay? I just never heard those type of words. So someone asked me, what's it like? Was someone finally saying like, how's your day? How's your life? And I enjoyed people asking me about me. So I loved hanging out with them guys.
Yeah. The single most important thing you can do to a kid, right, is actually be interested and curious and ask them questions and make them feel like they are a person, which sometimes is not part of parenting somehow. Yeah, and that gave you like felt like you were a human being. You felt like here are people who can actually see me. I'm not transparent to them.
And for people that don't understand that, it's like they can ask me what it's like, and people say, these people don't know what it's like around black people. Let me switch it up. Imagine if I would have said, so you see Amish people every day? Because they see Amish people every day. Like that was just their perspective of living. Right. That was my perspective of living. So.
And did you get a sense when they were asking you about black people what was your answers at the time? Would you talk about the fights at school?
Yeah.
But you weren't racist at the time.
I mean, now growing up, even in my neighborhoods, everyone's like, everyone's kind of neighborhood racist, right? The Irish hated the Italians hated the Irish, that we hated the Puerto Ricans, they hated the Puerto Ricans hated us, the black kids hated us. I mean, we're all 3-4 blocks from each other, right? So there's this neighborhood, we're better than them, they smell type stuff, right? So I always was raised with that type of racism. I mean, you never talked about an Italian person without saying the word Dago. You never talked about a black person without saying the N-word in our neighborhood. It just the way it was. And so what was funny is one of the things I used to hear was in my neighborhood, because I didn't know any Jewish people in my neighborhood, didn't know any Jews at all. And so I used to hear people used to say stuff like, if you picked up a penny, if like we were walking to school with my friends and you picked up a penny, people were like, what are you, a Jew? Right? I didn't get it. And I remember there was a time that a guy had not given the right change back to my uncle at the time. And he went to the store and gave him a 20 and he only gave him back change for a 10. And my cousin my uncle didn't realize until later on. And he said to his friends, oh, Johnny, he's always trying to Jew you. And everyone laughed. They're like, yeah, Johnny's always trying to Jew everybody, right? And I remember as a kid, like, why is that funny? And I even asked one time, now this is before the neo-Nazi years. I remember asking like, why is that funny when you say that? And my uncle was just like, well, see, the Jews, they're notorious for money. And he stopped me and he goes, you'll get it when you're, it's when I was about 10. He's like, you'll get it when you're older. On that racist stuff, when people were just throwing out racist stuff, it was nothing to me. I was like, okay. But I didn't like think I was going to join. I just thought I was hanging around these guys.
Yeah, with these cool kids.
And
you thought.
And the other thing that was really great was when we would go to clubs, nightclubs, all these other neo-Nazis would show up that knew each other. And I didn't know them. I'm just kind of hanging out with my cousin. I'm the little guy in this group. And they'd always say, we got you. We'll take care of you, right? But I noticed how everyone in the club feared them. You know, because they're hanging in a big mob, shaved heads, flight jackets, you know. Yeah, they look scary. And I remember looking at people as they walked by us, because I feel good to be part of this with these guys. But it was not even that. It was like when I would see that fear, I knew that look. And I loved that. Because up until the point in my life, I feared everything. I might be this 14-year-old athletic, tough kid from the city. But honestly, deep down inside, I stopped growing once my stepdad moved in. So I'm just a fearful 8-year-old inside that body. Yeah. And when I seen people, and I feared my school, I feared my parents, I feared my step-parents. I feared some days if I was going to have enough food. Yeah. Right now, someone fears me because I'm with these guys. I loved it. Yeah. So that was one of the main things I really enjoyed. And then that's shortly after when we were at a party after a nightclub where there were fights, and I got to take part in some of the stuff. And we were all at this party afterwards. And this guy, one of the guys said to my cousin, hey, when's he going to shave his head? You know, because I had this little teardrop kind of mullety haircut, you know? And I just went real quick. I was like, I'll do it now, guys. And everyone that was there that night took turns with the clippers doing my hair.
And that's really symbolic. That you felt like was a moment that you were actually becoming one of them. Right?
Yeah. Well, they were saying like white power and Sig Heiling, and it was like, so it was like, I felt good.
Yeah. And at this point you were like 13 then?
I was going on I was probably just turned 14. Uh-huh.
So you'd spent the summer in Pennsylvania this place, right? And you came back a completely different kid then.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like when I went to my first like neo-Nazi Bible studies, because they have Bible studies, and up in Reading, Pennsylvania, which was like a hotbed at the time. And so I went up there with my cousin and some of these guys, and we went up for this Bible studies.
What would happen at the Bible studies?
Well, there was a couple different Bible. The one I went to was just one in a big apartment with a bunch of neo-Nazis all showed up. And there was this guy who, I think he said he was some type of minister or something, but I don't know, self-proclaimed, I think. I don't know. But I remember him saying stuff like, he started teaching us about the Jews. That was always the point. That's what this group always kind of stuck with the Jews. And what happened was in the midst of the Bible studies, I remember him talking about how the Jews secretly funnel money from the Federal Reserve, right? Now, I was 14 at the time. I'm 50. I still don't know what the Federal Reserve does. You know what I mean? But it's always bad news, right? So here's this guy telling me that the Jews secretly funnel money off the Federal Reserve. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's what my uncle was talking about. Like, I must be older now. And I want to be older. I felt that the adults in my life left me to fend for myself. Right. I want to be an adult now. And I must be learning the truth now from these guys. Huh. And so there was stuff like that happen. And then we would read about
the whole conspiracy theory sort of made sense in your mind.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This tracks.
And then they would talk about how the Bible is written just for white people, really. And that, the Jews are the seed of Satan. Like
so
that
this was at the Bible study.
At the Bible studies, yeah.
So they entirely missed the part where it's love thy neighbor or anything. Well, all the teachings on love. They missed.
Well, that meant just love your fellow white neighbor.
Yeah.
The other, because black people, brown people are just beasts of the fields. Jews are Satan. So it's just the white people in between. Yeah. Yeah. Not that everyone out of that book wasn't white. So I don't know why, everyone that's written about it, there's no white people in that book.
Right.
And I don't know that at the time.
Yeah.
And I could also tell you, when they're talking about stories about like how the serpent had sex with Eve and he impregnates her with Cain, who was the original evil Jew on the planet, right? I grew up in an all Irish Catholic neighborhood. I made all my sacraments as a kid. I never heard Sister Mary Agnes or Father Wassel talk about that story like that they had talked about. So, so I had a little bit, but I remember thinking like, this must be the truth.
And you had no contact with Jewish people at the time, right?
No.
They weren't in your neighborhood. It wasn't something that you grew up with at all.
Yeah, I didn't know. Later on in life, I come to find out there was a couple of Jewish people in my neighborhood that I actually went to school, but they never said anything because it was just like, you would have got picked on type of thing, right? So I, later on in life, but I didn't know. So no, I didn't grow up with any connection to any Jewish people whatsoever. So
you come back to South Philly, right? Or actually West Philly at the time.
Yeah, I moved back
with your dad.
I moved back with my dad for a minute, but then went right back to my mom's.
Oh,
but that didn't last very long.
And you had, at this point, you were shaved head. You were dressed completely different. You were a skinhead.
I was just full on skinhead.
And what changed? Like what happened then? You found your group, your skinhead group in Philadelphia?
Well, I came back and I actually made my own group. Well, I met another guy who was a young neo-Nazi, and we were like, man, we need to. So we just started recruiting, and I got that's one of the things that, even my enemies, and they're still in the movement, will tell. Like, I was good at getting people into this.
How?
And because racism is to get people to become racist is the greatest bait and switch. So you tell me, oh, I want to be proud of my heritage. Okay. And then you say stuff like, why did they get BET? What, we don't have white entertainment television. Granted, all television is white entertainment television, but you know what I mean? Friends and Seinfeld were not diverse, right? So, but just stick to with their ideas. They're like, why do black people get black entertainment television? And why do they get the Negro College Fund? And why do they have affirmative action, right? These are all real arguments I used to hear all the time. And so I would say, yeah, man, that's what our group's all about. We're all about our heritage, because people say, I want to be proud to be white. Why can't I be proud to be white? And
it sounds very nowadays. that's what we hear all around us all the time nowadays. Yeah.
And so when these young men would say these things to me, I'd say, yeah, that's what we're all about. Come to my group. And then when they come to our group or come to our meetings, again, there's no internet. This is, on the streets, pounding the pavement type stuff. When they would come to our group, we never talked about our heritage. We only talked about those people. Look at what those people are doing to our country, So it was like this bait and switch, because you're like, oh, I want to be proud of my heritage. We don't even talk about our heritage. Right. We talk about them.
Yeah. In a way, if there is no sense of sort of identity and purpose, hate gives you, right? The otherization gives you a sense of community and purpose, right? Having people that are not, that you can hate, that you can blame everything for, then gives you a sense of community. This is what we all have in common, is that we are not like them, and we should hate them. And
they're ruining it.
They're ruining everything.
They're ruining everything.
Right.
So.
Right. Wow. And so you were really good at doing this. So spreading this message and recruiting people.
Yeah, I was good at always debate. There's people that are pundits, like Sean Hannity's a pundit. And what pundits do, and what I got known to be able to do, was I could read an article in a newspaper about how math scores in America are going down, whatever, give it any story. I will read that. I only read it for ammunition for an argument, not for information. Somehow I'm going to blame that the math scores in America are down. It's on the Jews. It's Jews' fault. It's somehow, right? Yeah. So anything I ever read was just ammunition for an argument.
Yeah, you're good at spinning.
And then when I would go, and here's one of the things, like there was a lot of in Philly, there's a lot of black activists. There's the Black Israelites and other black movements. For whatever reason, a lot of the black activists liked me, because I would actually come around and I would be off South Street and I would hear them argue and stuff. And then I would pipe in, because I'm just know-it-all neo-Nazi, And I remember they used to always say stuff like, oh, white people are, basically what I took from their argument, let me say this, is that they would say, oh, white people are born with a silver spoon in their mouth, right? And I used to say to them, like, what are you talking about? Like, my parents are drug addicts. We're on welfare. What do you? And they used to say to me, and I remember they say, look, Frank, we're not saying that you didn't have it hard. but you would have had it harder if you were black. And I used to always go, no, man, no, I had it hard, and that was my argument for a long time.
Yeah.
So I was really good at doing that and really good at always standing up for myself. And I was a little scrapper, a little fighter. And so it just gravitated people towards me. And I got really good at doing that.
And tell me, who were you recruiting? Like, who were the easiest targets when you were recruiting?
White males who were disenfranchised either by their families or at schools.
So if you found a kid whose parents would be wondering where they were at like 5 p.m., these were not the good kids to
Yes. If a kid had to be home at 5 o'clock for dinner every day, I'm not going to, he's going to be and I maybe recruited a couple because I was pretty good at it, but mostly no, that was hard to get someone who had to be in at 9 o'clock every night because we did everything after that, So if you guys like, I can't come out and, and I just was like, okay.
How many kids do you think you recruited?
Throughout my lifetime, like in different states, because I did it in different states. I hear a lot of people say they did hundreds. I did a lot. I don't know, a lot. Maybe.
How does that make you feel?
I mean, to know that I put the pit of hatred in people is really bad, especially when it comes to stuff like later on, like when Oklahoma City bombing happened and stuff. Like I remember thinking, like, I helped promote that.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to actively talk about blowing up federal buildings.
You talk about how you would have become that person.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. When I used to go from safe house to safe house throughout the country and live at like the little compounds and stuff, I remember like all they talked about was race war. And I was always a younger guy. I always was the youngest kid. And, I grew up with all older cousins. So I felt comfortable in those moments and in then times. Plus I had a big swastika tattooed on my neck, right? At 15, I got a swastika on my neck.
And your parents would say anything? Like you never
call me an idiot sometimes, but that was
But they wouldn't say, they weren't worried for you. They wouldn't try to dissuade you. But
they had new lives. They had new families. I mean, it's really how it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to get to the part where you then sort of become a little more violent and thinking about blowing places up. But before then, so you were recruiting basically the kids that were usually, sort of a little lost, a little abandoned. It's interesting. When I was doing my white supremacy report, a story for Trafficked, there was something that stuck with me, which was that there were part of these white supremacy, the modern white supremacy groups, kind of like Atomwaffen and some of the more like fringe,
the base,
the base, very dangerous ones. Yeah, the base. That there's a lot of that they would be sharing Al-Qaeda manuals that would teach them how to recruit and how to promote their ideology.
Yes.
And how the sort of these very extremely different perspectives on the world were actually using the same methods.
I used to get along really well with a lot of like the Black Muslim groups because we both hated the Jews equally. Like that was, they knew that I was like this white guy that could like bring something to the table and not just be like, I hate black people, or I hate Jews. Like I was like, and this in the Bible and the Federal Reserve, I bring up stuff that I'm hearing, and these guys are like, so sometimes, I mean, it's funny that like when extremism comes up anywhere in the world, this is the truth. Jews are kind of like the canary in the coal mine. Yeah. They're the first group that, whenever extremism, far, far left or far, far right, that becomes a target. And it always has. I'm
going to spoil it a little bit for everyone by telling everyone that you are Jewish now. You found out that you had Jewish ancestry, right? And
yes.
You're now, which is, I wanted to save that to the end, but it's important to know now because I'm going to ask you why you think that is.
Why do I think that the Jews are always, there's a bunch of different reasons. One is that I believe that wherever Jewish people go, they're always a successful minority. Right. One of the things, because there was always talked about this conspiracy of the Jews, this and why are all the Jews the high ups here? And I remember I would believe that. And then when I come to find out what the truth is, and I'll tell everyone, the truth is it's education. Education is pounded home in the Jewish tradition of life and the Jewish thought. Yeah. It's about education and education. And so wherever we would go, we would be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people tend to hate not the victims, right? You tend to hate the people with success, the people that are doing better than you, the people that you wish you were, I guess, the people that you're jealous and envious of.
Yeah. And so that was one of the things I come to find out. But it was everywhere they've always gone, there's been this thing where, and sometimes they're accepted, like in Spain. And then a new leader comes in and says, no, these people are, being successful. They're doing things. And then they make up conspiracies, the water poisoning the wells or whatever, and so that's kind of, again, the conspiracy that they're stealing from the Federal Reserve.
Yeah. Okay. So then you're amazing at recruiting, and how does it develop from there? When was the first time that you realized that, when was the first time you started being violent for the cause, or using violence for the cause?
I started being violent right away when I started to recruit a lot of the kids out of Philly, and I had a partner and another guy who all were in on this, and we were just, because there had been a neo-Nazi crew before us called the Uprise, which was like this famous. There was two crews, one called the Arresting Officers, and the other was called the Uprise crew, and they were now to us. Our elders, they were like 19, 20-year-olds. Come on. We were like 15, 16-year-olds. And so I remember having a goal that I wanted to be bigger than them. And I'm one of those people that can do this. I don't, it's just one of my things, it's a gift. It could be used for good. It could be used for bad. So, cause I later on used these gifts for good, but I was just good at doing it. I was good at, and so the violence was that a lot of people had seen me fight. And we had this little alley we used to hang in called Skinhead Alley. And we had taken that over from the Sharps, which were the Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice. They're like the anti-fascist groups.
Okay.
So we had taken it over from them. And when I get these suburban kids to come down, and then they would see this guy who would fight. I would fight all the time. Like I just fought all the time. No problems with it at all.
But who are you finding to fight?
The anti-fascists. Yeah.
So and you thought you were fighting at the time for the cause, like
for the white race.
Yeah, for the white race.
Oh, I'm sure that was my thing inside of me was I'm defending the white race. So the violence was right away. A lot of fighting, a lot of weapons. Then I started I moved out of my parents' house at 15. Like I was done. My parents were like, just didn't want me around. That I don't get it, but I get it in a way.
And where were you sleeping?
I just started living with the older neo-Nazis up in the suburbs, like out in the boon country. Like,
and you weren't going to school anymore, right?
Stopped going to school. I never went to like high school at all. I went to 2 weeks of high school, and then I got kicked out of high school.
Ninth grade.
Ninth grade, yeah. And I was just there to socialize and recruit other kids into being neo-Nazis.
And what were you doing for work? Like, how were you surviving?
Well, I was a kid, so a lot of our stuff was criminal. Selling stolen goods, a lot of selling. Stolen guns was a big thing, especially when I moved to Allentown and I lived in this huge safe house, a huge neo-Nazi safe house in the middle of an all Puerto Rican neighborhood. So we stood out like a sore thumb, but it was, and we were, that's all we did. We had, I remember the one whole summer I lived off of, we had hijacked like 6 huge boxes of cartons of cigarettes. And each one of those sold for like $10 at the time, like just the carton inside there,
Yeah.
And I remember I lived high off the hog on those for a while because I didn't smoke, so it was perfect. So,
and what about the guns? Which guns, and who are you selling them to, and how are you getting them?
So here's so we would get guns. Usually they were stolen. A lot of them were stolen. I remember one of the first big heists we did was out of a police officer's home. We stole like assault rifles. And we had a couple SKSs, which were the old AK-47.
And you were part of that heist? You went into the house?
I wasn't in the house. It came back to the house, and we had to distribute them.
Got it. Okay.
And then I remember there was a Mac 10, and here was the thing: me being a city kid, if you sell a stolen Mac 10 to a militia member, and you have to tell me it's stolen, they'll know, they usually don't want it because they don't want to put it in their cash load of weapons, because if the feds should ever come, they're going to take all their guns for having a stolen gun, right? Or they would have to bury them. That's what the other thing they used to bury them. And if they did buy it, they would give me $50 for a stolen gun, even if it was a Mac 10. I can go down in the hood and sell it for like $600.
Wow.
because, and down in the hood, they don't care. And so I kind of had that connection because I grew up in that area.
And didn't you think, and who are you selling it down in the hood to?
Just
what kind
black dudes, Richard Allen Holmes.
Right. Which is fun because if you're fighting for the cause and then you're selling guns to the people that your cause is against, who you're fighting against, right? That doesn't make much sense.
Well, no, actually,
I don't know.
Yeah, no, it does. It because the way we were taught and the way we talked about it was we're selling it to them because they're just going to kill each other.
Right. So actually we're helping them kill each other. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that makes terrible.
And you got $600 for a stolen gun.
Yeah. And was it you guys were constantly talking about a race war?
Always. Every night, all conversations, everything we did, everything we talked about, all the music we listened to.
And how did you think that would happen? Like, what was in your mind? Were you guys were obviously, you were training and getting ready for this race war. And then you were waiting for something to happen that would set off the race war? We had one guy who was David Duke. If you remember, this is right around when David Duke is running for governor of Louisiana. So we have what we believe is our candidates. Wait, and remind me again, David Duke was KKK, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't he associated with the KKK?
Yeah, he was the grand wizard, but then denounced it, started running, but still kept all the white talking points.
Yeah, right. That's
Even came up with the white NAA, like the white version of the NAACP, the white ACCP. Right. But we also had a lot of things where we're always talking about getting in the military, becoming cops. That was a big thing. Let's become cops. In fact, in Philly, just for anyone that needs to back this up, there was a band called Arresting Officers. They were a neo-Nazi band, which one of them later on becomes a cop, and others have become cops. But so just know that the police and the reason why the band's called Arresting Officers is because the arresting officer who's arresting someone gets to have the most fun with Black people. Right. And there was a whole band. Wow. And since I had the swastika on my neck, wherever I would go to different compounds, there would be people in there that would say, man, you're smart, and they would say, and then they would say stuff like, you should get rid of that tattoo because we need you to become like I used to hear it more because I had the swastika on my neck where people would come up and say, man, we got to stop doing this. We got to stop having these things on us. We need you guys to join the military. We need you guys to go become cops. Yeah. And
it's interesting you say that. We had Christian Picciolini on a few months ago, and he was talking about the same thing. Like there was a moment where it switched from shaved heads and combat boots and swastikas to we need to look like your neighbor, like a normal person that could then be recruited because the real power happens within authority.
Yes.
And so this happened to you. Like this was something that you experienced
absolutely.
as well.
I mean, guys that were part of our groups became cops.
Yeah. This is so scary. And and then what happened to them? Do you know? This is well known. Yes,
it's well known. Yeah. So a couple of them lost their jobs. Two, because eventually the police fired them because they found out about their past, which is great. Now they didn't fire them because it was the right thing to do. I want to be honest with you. They fired them because they knew if any defense attorney ever found this stuff out, it would destroy whatever case they had against somebody. So that's because there was others that they let stay, that they knew. Yeah. They let stay.
Yeah. It's also such a bad image for the police.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, these are not the people you want within your ranks if you're.
And you know what?
If you want people to respect you and.
Yeah. But also, fuck that. You know who really has to pay for it? The Black people to get pulled over at 10 o'clock at night on a dark highway. That's who we need to really worry about because they escalate things on the side of the road. And traffic stops because you didn't use your blinker 50 feet. You use 50 feet and not 100 feet. Now they're escalating things. Now they're pulling you out of your car in front of your children. This happens in America. 50,000 traffic stops a day in America.
And it's happening now with immigration raids.
Absolutely. ICE is just doing what the police have been doing, but on steroids. Right. That's all. The traffic stop scenario things is just what the police have been doing over the years.
I truly believe I spent a lot of time with law enforcement in America, and I believe there are amazing people out there that are actually risking their lives to protect us all. But of course, there are also a lot of bad apples, like in everything. The problem with these bad apples in this position of power is that they have this position of power that they can use sometimes indiscriminately and against the people
And
with
that's
less
why
police power.
a lot of us, and we'll get into, but I'm an activist
Mm-hmm.
now. That's my job, is to be an activist, to stand up. And it's to say, like, we actually can fix things so that bad cops can't be bad cops.
Mm-hmm.
America now, we're only 5% of the world population. Half of that is women. There's a little bit more women than are men because men do stupid things and die a little bit more.
Yeah.
But there's more, just a tad bit more women in this country. And so that's 2.5%. But we have 30% of the world's women's prison population.
Oh, wow. And 20% of men's, right?
Yep.
That's true right now.
30%.
That's crazy.
And if you do it, though,
I know.
this is my life now. If you look at where so Oklahoma has the most per capita of women in prison. Oklahoma. And then it's like Arkansas and Kentucky, and it goes down those type of states. And what you do is, if you look at the states that have the most per capita women in their prisons, and then you look at their education, it's almost like stacked opposite, like the bottom of the education. And it
like the less educated you are, or the less education there is in your state, or access to education, the more likely it is that you'll end up in prison. Yeah. I mean, it's always the case, right? It's not because of the color of your skin that you become a criminal. It is because of lack of education, lack of opportunities. I talk about this all the time.
Yeah. And we can fix this.
Yeah.
Like, we have the ability to fix this problem. We're not going to in this
if we spent more time, instead of chasing drugs, for example, that's another big thing, argument that I have, and more time actually creating the infrastructure and the opportunities and the jobs and all of the stuff that would lead less people to want to be involved in drug trafficking or to use drugs. Yeah. Then that's a much better way of fighting drugs.
Right.
But going back to you.
Let's go. Because I can get on that.
No, me too. So this starts escalating, right? The violence starts escalating. And then tell me about the one moment where sort of things really turn ugly.
So I moved to Springfield, Illinois. I was wanted in Philadelphia on a case. So the movement got me moved. They got me shipped out to Indianapolis. What
were you wanted for, by the way?
I had a couple, I think there was just assaults, aggravated assaults and things that, I got fingered in something that I did something.
For beating people?
Mostly beating people. I think there was mostly beating and fightings and beating up an Antifa member, or a Sharp at the time. Or an ARA was another group called the Anti-Racist Action. And, and I used to torment them. Like, I was known in Philly. That was the other. I tormented those other groups. I'm not, just to be honest and let people, I tormented one of their members so bad, he put himself into a mental hospital because we just wouldn't stop. Everywhere he worked, everywhere he went, everything he did, because he talked trash about us, and I heard about it, and I was like, nope, not in our town, not in Philly.
And what did you do? Torment him how?
We just, everywhere he went, anytime he was at work, we just show up, and we just kept doing it to him. And eventually, like, he just went,
doing what?
Just like showing up and staring at him. Like, we never got to beat, or I never got to fight or beat the kid up, but
just like menacingly showing up.
Nonstop. Like, his car would get damaged all the time. And he had known other people we had done things to, and we kept saying, like, it's coming for you. And we just were so relentless to that. He was I say kid, he was probably 17 at the time. So, so he's still a kid, but I was that age too. So I was actually younger. I was like 14, 15 tormenting this guy. And so that's what I mean. So that's the type of stuff that I was doing all the time.
And was there any part of you that felt sorry for them? I mean, you as yourself, you'd been through all these beatings at home and had been bullied and all of it. You never like thought this poor kid or these poor kids?
I had one moment, only one moment. I write about it in my book, actually. There was a kid we were beating up outside of a college thing. There was a reggae festival, and me and a bunch of neo-Nazis were like, how dare they listen to the black music? And it's the college trying to turn the white kids black, and And so we went and we waited around, and there was a kid that we beat pretty severely. And I remember there was a moment for a second that the picture of my favorite uncle was on his face. And then I wiped it away. And
he reminded you of your uncle?
Yeah, because my uncle at the time was in college. For some reason, that was one moment I always remember where my uncle's face, and they were putting someone just put a tack hammer in this kid's head. And as this is, so and then there was this, and then the camaraderie of being with my guys and stuff, you know, I was 15, 16 at the time, just an absolute menace.
Right. So then you're shipped out. You're
shipped out. Yep. Shipped out. And I moved to Indianapolis, and then I moved over to Springfield, Illinois. And that's where I got my own cable access television show.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
So I used to have this cable, and by that time I got arrested. We just got to say, because people are going to say, if you were wanted, I got arrested right when I got to Springfield for beating up an anti-fascist kid, a sharp kid who was at a mall one day. It's like 2 days of me living there. I find this kid, and I was always like, wherever I am, they're not going to be. Like, that was my enemy. They were, I get like that. And so anyhow, I beat up this kid at a mall and got arrested, and they found out about my warrants when they arrested me, but they were all juvenile warrants in Philly and in Jersey. I think I had one in Jersey too. Yeah, I did have one in Jersey too. And so they, but I remember the cops came to me after that. They tried to charge me as an adult for a second. And then they came and said, hey, you got all these warrants for your arrest in Philly and Jersey, but they're not going to extradite you. You're just a kid. And it's just like these, you know, again, it was like aggravated assaults and stuff. You know, not that that's okay, but it wasn't these, you know, bank robberies yet. So anyhow, I remember that the city dropped its warrants on me because they thought that Illinois was going to take care of me. But Illinois wound up just dropping the charges and letting me out the next day from this fight.
That's great.
So, yeah.
I mean, bad, but
now
looking back.
So anyway, I'm in Springfield, and now all the warrants are dropped on me. Now I'm back to, I was hiding. Now I wasn't hiding anymore. I was like, okay. And you got to know that I show up, swastika on my head. I have a tattoo on the top of my head that says "Made in Philly." So they know I'm not a local. It says it right on my head. It advertises that I'm not a local kid. And I'm recruiting out of the high schools, recruiting kids. You know, the jocks would pick on the skateboarder kids, and I would show up at their school, and I would do things like, back then I still had cassette tapes. So a kid would have like the Beastie Boys, like this kid I'm recruiting, and have the Beastie Boys, the old punk rock Beastie Boys before they did Licensed Ill. And so he would have that tape in, and I would look at them, and they all love it. It was actually really good. Their punk stuff was really good. But anyway, I would pop the tape out, and I'd say, yo, these are a bunch of Jews from New York, man. And I throw the tape out the window. And I'd say, here, I got a tape for you. And it would be like this, Arresting Officers, the band, or No Remorse, Screwdriver, some type of white supremacist music, because there was tons of it at the time.
Tons,
So I have no warrants for my arrest anymore. And now I get to just be wild. And I got my own cable access television show. Me and another guy, we walked into the local cable. This is like the podcast of its day. Remember, the cable access was like these high up channels in your cable network that were like religious shows, or all your local media shows, your local events shows were all on their high numbers in your cable, and they were called cable access.
Right. Yeah. It is kind of like the podcast. So back then.
Yeah.
And did you have to pay to get that access? You just walk in and say, I want to do this, and they would give it to you.
Because the college did it, and it was part of this, like, and the college approved it. I mean, they had to, or they would have had a lawsuit. We would have got the ACLU on them. And you were spreading your hateful ideology. And the other groups at the time, there was two other television. One was called Race for Reason, and then there was another one. And we had gotten their shows. They sent us copies of their show, and we got those put on too. But I remember watching these like older white men talking about our beliefs. And even though I believed what they believed, I used to go, these shows are boring. They're so dumb. Like, I just really was like, this is boring. So me and this other guy made the show, and we like did little skits, and we had music playing, and like we did jokes, and we had like the racist Wayne's World at the time. Wayne's World was a cable access show, right? So there you go. And so we did like this racist Wayne's World, and this, at the time it was called Lincoln Land Community College. It's something different now, but at the time it was called Lincoln Land. So Abraham Lincoln, civil rights. Here we are doing a neo-Nazi show in Springfield. And you weren't they didn't shut you down when they realized what you guys were. They didn't know at the time. What you were guys propagating? I got arrested at the next taping in my TV show. That's where they arrested me at. Oh, so you did one episode, and we were about to do the next one. To do the second one. And by that time we had kidnapped the guy already. Okay, so tell me about that moment. So,
and before you do, actually, because I remember there was a question that related to something you said before.
Sure.
We have a Patreon account right now. So some members of the Patreon account had some questions for you.
Sure.
One is Kate Young. She asked if your family was also racist.
My family was neighborhood racist. Yes. They weren't like white supremacist racist, but they were struggling white people who can look down on other people.
Right.
And so, yes.
And she also asked an interesting question, which is, did school teachings on, slavery, Nazis, Hitler, all of it, did that not make you question any of your hateful beliefs?
No. I went to Philadelphia public school. It wasn't the greatest school. Right. It just wasn't,
So it wasn't as if they were teaching you about how bad this was and how many people died. And
I mean, I remember I think when I was still in school, there might have been a Black history. Yeah, there was but I remember it not being,
Yeah. So then then take me back to that moment. You wake up that morning and what happened?
So there was this anti-racist kid, he was an anti-racist skinhead, because the original skinheads are not racist. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, they're from England. Right?
Yeah, like England. They were kind of just these working class kids. The neo-Nazis came in later on and kind of just hijacked the whole thing. But he was one of those. And I was recruiting tons of kids at the time. I had what we call fresh cuts at the time. I had probably 15, a lot. 2 high schools I was recruiting out of at the time. And they all knew this kid because he was also like a skateboarder kid, and they knew his girlfriend. And so they were all like, no, he's cool. And I'm like, he's not cool. Like, I've been fighting with these groups that he belongs to, hardcore fighting with them throughout the country so far. Everywhere I went, this was most of my violence and stuff was towards
this group,
these groups. So I'm like, he's not cool. And everyone's like, he is. And so he kind of came around to sometimes, and we were kind of cool with each other. And then I was just trying to get everyone to hate him, because I wanted to tell everyone too that, and this is not an excuse, but an explanation. I was an alcoholic the whole time. From 15 on, I was an alcoholic. Like I drank. That's what I did. I set up things so we could party. Right. And so.
What were you drinking?
Just everything, anything. I would drink malt liquor. I was a huge malt liquor drinker. I was a Colt 45 drinker because I was from Philly. So it was the beer I knew. It's what they sold at my dad's place. So, and all around my dad's neighborhood. So I say that in the fact that what I would do is if I didn't like you, I just did not like you, I would go and make sure I would get allies against you, because that's what I had to do. And I was trying to get all these people to be against this guy. And eventually I got enough of them to be like, okay. And so a couple of us set him up and said, hey, come on over. We're having like a Christmas party. And we like played music in the background. And a couple of us were like, hey, making noise like it was a party. I was like, hey, come over. We're having a party. And he came over and there was no party. And when he got there, we just pulled a shotgun out on him and just tortured him, beat him. And there's video of the video. There's a video of us doing this.
What did you do?
I kicked him in the face a bunch, hit him with the gun a bunch, split open his face. There's a scene in the video that was used as evidence where he's like holding blood, because I was like, if you bleed on my carpet, I'm going to kill you. So he like just was holding his blood in his hand. So,
how old was this kid? He
was 19. I was 17.
What was he saying?
He was just saying, I'm not going to say anything about this. It's not. He was like, I haven't done anything to you guys.
How were you feeling at the time?
At the time, I was grateful that these newer neo-Nazis. Because the reason why we videotaped it was because we wanted to show the new recruits, because I had gotten word that they were like, this guy's cool. And I wanted to show him like, he ain't cool.
But showing you beating him was showing that he ain't cool?
Yeah. Like, he ain't tough. That was my mind frame at the time. I was super, and people here, and just so everyone knows, I made an amends to that man years later.
Oh, you did?
Oh, absolutely. I had to. To live the life that I live today, I had to make amends for my past.
And did he forgive you?
Yeah, not only did he forgive me, he beat me to the punch. He said he was sorry for going to the police after I released him. And I was like, no, I'm here to, man, you beat me to, because I seen him. It was crazy. I was actually doing lectures at the time, and I was in St. Louis. And this is like 6 years later. Time had passed, and I had not known where this man was. And it's just, God puts people in the right places. Wow. I'm sitting at this bar, and I'm drinking this O'Doul's, and I look over, and I'm like, holy crap, that's him. So I walk over to him, and I come up behind him just because the way he was sitting at the bar, and I was like, hey, is your name such and such? And he said, yeah. And I was like, didn't you used to be a sharp? And he was like, and he turned and he kind of went, yeah. And I was like, and he still didn't recognize me because I looked different. I had the swastika taken off now. You know, I had hair. Yeah. And I'm sure just my aura is different, is different. I hope. And so he still didn't get, and I was like, have you ever been kidnapped? And that's when his face just dropped and he was like, oh my God. And I was like, I wanted to make sure that he knew right away, like, I'm not here. I was like, hey, and he goes, yo, man, I'm so sorry. I went to the cops. I should have handled that.
What a nice guy.
Yeah. And I turned to him and just said, I was like, no, man, I want to make an amends for what I had done. Yeah. I shouldn't have done that to you as a human being, and he was like, no, man, it's all cool. And we hung out that night in St. Louis and yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. I mean, those coincidences are amazing.
Yes.
But back to the day, what was your plan? What were you thinking you were going to do with this kid after beating him?
Well, I was going to hold him for ransom, but then we couldn't find anyone to pay his ransom. So we kind of got stuck with it.
Why? Because his family just wasn't?
His family and just the people that he ran with, there wasn't anyone like that. And so.
So you were stuck with him. You kept him in this apartment?
Overnight, yeah. We kept him overnight. And then we let him go in the morning.
And what were you thinking when you let him go? You said it was Christmas Day, right? When you let him go?
Yeah, it was Christmas.
And you
Christmas
thought
Christmas
around there?
Yeah, right around in the Christmas Eve or in the Christmas Day, right around Christmas.
Yeah. So. And you thought, okay, I'm going to let this guy go. Didn't you think that he was very likely going to go to the police? No. I thought he was going to go call all of his anti-racist buddies and his Antifa buddies, and they were going to come down and fight with us. Like that's. Because that's the world you were from. Yeah. Again, I'm an alcoholic, so I'm not thinking straight. It was kind of insane. I definitely was insane at the time. But you didn't think of, you beat the shit out of the kid, but you didn't think of doing anything else to the kid.
There was a brief moment of thought of killing him, but I just knew that it was too much and too far. I just had two friends in Philly, part of the movement, who were in jail for murder, you know what I mean? So that kind of, I was like, I don't want to go to jail for murder, And again, I really thought that this was going to start like a little war between us and their group.
And that you guys would probably beat them.
Well, I never thought we were not going to win.
Yeah. And then you find yourself being charged, right? You were sentenced, charged what was your sentencing?
My sentence was, they wound up giving me 3 years.
And this was for kidnapping, assault.
Yeah. My final charge was aggravated unlawful restraint. What had saved me from getting a 15-year bit was that we tricked him to come to us. We didn't remove him from his place and bring him to ours. And I didn't know this, so I wasn't like this,
It was premeditated.
Yeah. I wasn't like, oh, let's do this. And it was just that happened to be the evidence was that he came to us, and that's where it happened. So they just gave me an aggravated unlawful restraint. And but while I was in the county jail, there was a bunch of interesting things that had happened. Like one of the things is for a while, because of my age and even just because they had known. Oh,
yeah, because you were underage, right? You were 17.
I was 17.
You weren't even an adult, but you were being tried as an adult.
Absolutely. They were not. They told me right away, you're being charged as an adult. Like, you don't get to do these type of crimes.
Because of your past history.
And the crime. The whole, plus I was the skinhead with the TV show in the town causing all this havoc. Like, they were like, we got to punish this guy. And and I remember I was in the county jail for a while fighting my trial. And it had everything against me, videotapes and other people's testimonies, and it wasn't good. So anyway, in the county jail, one funny story, won't take too long, was I was in segregation in the hole because of my age and just all this stuff going on with me. They thought I was, and segregation for those people that advocate against, the solitary confinement. Mm-hmm. After a while, you do start talking to yourself. It just happens, right? It happens to everyone in there. It's really, you just do. It's like these weird things happen to you when you don't have no human contact. And back then, this is in 1993. Again, that's when people talk about American history. My story was in 1992, 93. And this is all happening. And just because that movie comes out years and years later, right? So it wasn't like right around the same time. So anyhow,
98 or something, I think
it came out in 1998. Yeah. While you're in the hole, they used to bring around religious books. And so I remember reading the Bible, just the regular Christian Bible. And there was a part in the book about fasting, that if you fast, God will reveal himself to you. And this is a funny, goofy story, but it's true. So I read this part. Now, when you hear people joke all the time, they always say, where do you find God at? You find him in a county jail. That's where everyone else seems to find him, because like, I'm good. Please, I'll be good. If you get me out of this, come on, God, So I'm at that stage, right? in my story. And so I read this part in the Bible, and it said, if you fast, God will reveal himself to you, but you cannot brag or boast. So you can't go around and like tell everyone like, hey, I'm fasting because God's my boy. And now I picked 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm like, I'm not going to eat. I'm going to fast, and I'm not going to tell anybody. But what I'm praying for, because I just want people to remember, I'm insane at the time. Insane. I'm praying to God that he's going to, on Monday, after I'm done fasting, that he's going to pop my door. He's going to knock down the walls, and he's going to kill all the guards and let me go home. That's what I'm praying for. Again, I'm in solitary confinement for 4 months.
God,
right?
It's suddenly like Liam Neeson.
Yeah. Like I'm like, and I would say things like, "Yo, if you're real, you're going to do this for me, man. Come on, God." And so the 3 days goes by, and they're asking me. The prison guards kept saying, because I wouldn't accept my food, because I didn't want it in my cell, because I knew I would. I just knew I would have ate. I was so hungry, but I was like, if I keep my slider open, I would just. And so every time they opened my thing, I would pull it shut so they couldn't put the food in. And then the warden, he's the lieutenant of the jail, but we called him the warden. He comes into me and pulls me out after my third day. I'm not eating. And they think that I'm on like a hunger strike or I'm trying to kill myself. My case is high profile. It's on the news all the time. Neo-Nazi had the TV show Kidnapping. It's like on the news. It's high profile in the town. So they don't want people to think they're mistreating me, right? So the warden comes to me. Again, he was just a lieutenant, but we called him the warden. Pulls me out of my cell. And on the last day, on Sunday, pulls me out and says, "Why are you not eating?" And again, I can't tell him.
You can't boast.
You can't boast. So I was like, he starts asking me, "Are you trying to kill yourself?" I was like, "No." "Are you trying to, are you on a hunger strike?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Why are you not eating?" In my head, I'm like, you better be prepared. Because
God is coming.
Some shit's going down tomorrow, right? It's on, right? You better go say goodbye to everybody because the shit's going down. That's what's going on in my head. But I'm just like, nah. And he says to me, he goes, "Hey, Mr. Meeink," he goes, "I don't think you belong in this segregation. I don't think you belong in here." He says, "If you eat tomorrow, I'm going to put you out. I'll put you out in this, what they call the H box, the honor cell box." Now, this is a huge county jail. This isn't like Mayberry. This is a huge county jail with tons of cell blocks and all this. And he says, "I'll put you in the honors block, the H block," which is where mostly a lot of people also had high profile cases who were just trying to stay out of trouble while their case is on, they're not looking for trouble in there, And I just remember looking at him, and he told me if I ate tomorrow, which I'd already planned on eating tomorrow. So I was like, okay.
Great.
I was like, "For you, warden? Sure. I got you. I'll eat tomorrow." And I ate. And this is one of my first moments. Again, I have to say this, and people can take it however they want. I know for a fact, 1,000,000% that God is real. There's been a couple of moments that happened in my life. I don't need to force that on nobody. The only part I need that to be true between me and any other interaction with another human being is not that I have to force that on you. Is that how do I treat you as a child of God? That's it. Right. So just know that. I'm not at that point yet in the story, but when the next day when he came and got me and he's walking me to the H block, there was a moment where something told me, I'm not going to give you what you want because you're insane, but I want to give you what you need right now. And that's to get you out of the cell block where you've been talking to some crazy stuff's been going on with you. And he took me out to H block.
So I'm not going to bring this down and kill everybody here like you're asking for, but I'm going to give you what you actually need.
Right. And then right away, within a couple of days on the new block, there was this younger black kid named G who came up to me one day and just was like, hey, do you know how to play spades? The card game. And I was like, no, I don't know how to play. He goes, let me teach you. And again, no one's starting any trouble in there. So it's not like this, like, no, again, I grew up in Philly with all black kids anyway. So it wasn't a big thing for me to be like, all right, whatever. Like, and so he's teaching me, and he was super funny. Like, he was one of the most funniest human beings. The best way I can describe him, just to give people an image of, he was a short little guy, skinny, but he would remind me when I first started seeing Kevin Hart. He used to remind me of G, okay? Because he was just this funny. Yeah. He could bust on you for anything. Yeah, like had quick come. And I'm sure he had to coming up where, he's a small, little, short, little thug kid, was in a gang called the Vice Lords, you know what I mean? So
so that's the part of the story that also super reminds you of American History X, right? This is why I keep coming to it. I guess it's maybe not based at all in your story, but your story is so similar to it, particularly that part, the prison part where, he does start with this relationship with this skinny, short, little black, funny kid who's constantly doing acts and making people laugh, which was very much the guy that you met.
And that's, yes.
And the impact that person had on the Edward Norton character and the impact that this kid had on your life.
And because of G, because then later on, I wound up getting sentenced up to 3 years, and I get sent up to state prison. And when I got up to state prison, because I only was going to have to do about a year because of good time and because I did enough time in the county, so you get time served, right? So I'm only going to do about a year upstate. So one of the things G taught me how to do was how to cheat. He taught me how to cheat playing cards. I could tell you, like, if we were playing spades, you have to come back in different suits. And if I had the lead, he would tap his finger right here, which meant come back in diamonds. Yeah. And no one thought this black kid from Chicago and his knee, it was almost like white man. It's like white man can't jump, but for spades, we were running game, and he would slam his hand, which meant come back in clubs, or if he kept his cards close to his heart, meant come back in hearts. Like, we knew because he might have been cutting them with spades or what. So, and we used to play for the older inmates for peanut butter and jellies, which I'm an addictive person. I'm an addictive behavior. That's why I'm in recovery. But I love peanut butter and jelly. I'm not kidding. It's not even a joke.
You're in active recovery for peanut butter and jelly.
I am. I absolutely am. I don't have it in the house because I will eat it like that. Okay, that's how I live today.
It's funny.
So we used to play the older inmates for peanut butter and jelly. Well, so we just became cool with each other, right? I'm not being a neo-Nazi anymore. That's not even a thought. Right. This is just happening. This is just me. I enjoy sitting at the same tables with him in the day room watching TV because we would make each other laugh and we were the youngest two kids in there, So anyway, I get sent upstate. When I get sent upstate, all the Aryans are waiting for me. In a good way, because I was.
So this is the Aryan Nation, the Aryan Brotherhood, right? Who are
the
white,
the North Siders. There was the bikers. There was all these guys that all ran together. Yeah, and they all knew about my TV show because there was some of them guys who were these older bikers who wound up getting sent up to prison who remember the TV show. So now they're like, "Yo, this neo-Nazi with the TV." So I was like a little celebrity, in there. While I'm up there, the Aryans are cool and I get along with them. They're older bikers, and that's what they were. Bikers from southern central Illinois, basically Tennessee. That's what southern and central Illinois is like. It's this kind of rednecky type place. And here were these guys who were cool. And but we would go play sports some days just because it's what you do. Some days the Aryans or the white guys would own the basketball courts for the day, or sometimes you do the handball court, or some days we had this, or some days it was neutral days in those yards. Some days when we had just the basketball court or the workout yard, we would play basketball. And it's like playing basketball with a bunch of bikers. They don't know how to dribble. You know what I mean? They don't know how to pass the ball. They just brick it all the time. And that's fine because they can fix your transmission at 2 years old too. So they have their own gifts, right? This isn't one of them. I'm good at playing ball. I've grown up my whole life playing all just balling. I'm a baller from Philly. So when G wound up getting sent up to the state prison with me, he started telling some of the other black kids, "Oh, this kid knows how to play." So they let me play. And it wasn't just basketball. It was also we played football. And I'm way better at football than I am basketball. That was my game growing up. So again, I'm starting to hang out with those guys just sometimes in prison. Again, not changing. That's what I mean. This is an American history. I wasn't changing in prison. I was like just getting along to get along. There was no gang wars, no race wars going on at the time in the prisons I was at. Everyone kind of got along. We were all selling drugs and selling things to each other and whiskey and wine and all these things to each other. So I'm like, whatever, like just living life the best I can in this year of prison. And the Aryans never minded me playing cards sometimes with the black guys because they sometimes play card with the black guys. And they knew, especially when they see me playing football, the white dudes knew how good I was. So they used to be like, oh, I'm like the great white hope out there representing the whole white race. So like that type of stuff was happening in prison. But there's one thing that really stuck with me. Like I said, I always argued with the black guys back when I used to debate, where they used to say, you know what? If you had it, you would have had it worse if you were black. And I say, no. I kidnapped someone and I got 3 years. G, Jello, Tony, these black kids I were in the prison with me, getting 15, 20 years for selling crack.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember that going, oh shit, they're right.
Right.
If a black kid would have did what I did.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah.
20 to life.
Yeah.
I got 3. And it burns the back of my neck as I'm talking about it right now, going, there was moments in my life where I'm like, oh shit, I'm wrong. And that was a moment, because I used to hear all the black activists in prison talking, and I would wanted to argue with them, but I'm like, no, I have nothing to stand on. I have 1 year for kidnapping someone with a firearm. Yeah. Because I'm white. Yeah. That's the truth. Yeah. So when I get really...
So you are slowly changing in prison.
I am, but I don't... It's not an identity change. It was I might be wrong change. That's what it was happening. Like, well, maybe I am wrong about something. That's all. That was... But it wasn't like... I still don't... When I get out of prison, I'm going to go right back to running neo-Nazis, getting guns, getting ready for a race war. Like, this is just prison. It's a whole different reality in there.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the questions that I got, which was it's a prison. It was, why did prison not reinforce? It's from Steve Chilcote. I think it's how you pronounce his name. Okay, Steve Chilcote. He says, why did prison not reinforce the behavior and values?
The white racist values, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things I think for me, and other people can take it. I think it was God helping to start the change in me. Yeah. Because I think that since I was like a Philly kid and grew up around black people too, that it was easier for me just to be like, he's cool. He's a cool guy. Like I bet you if I would have grew up in a trailer park in Southern Illinois, it might have just keep enforcing it. But I just remember that I had more in common sometimes with the black kids who lived in Chicago who took the L train. None of my biker friends ever took an L train, right? I took an L train growing up. So there was like these little inner city things that I had in common with them sometimes. I found, and again, it wasn't something where I was like, oh, let's kumbaya. It wasn't like that. It just was happening. Yeah. I didn't know. I'm going on 18-year-old kid in a maximum security adult prison I was a child in there and I acted like a child. I used to get in trouble by my gang all the time because I acted like a child. Yeah. Like I used to drink too much and get drunk and walk on the tiers, and I used to get in trouble for drinking, what they call it, drinking and driving. I was like always in trouble with my gang. Yeah. But they didn't do anything because I was the one who had more leadership on the outside than they ever could think of having. Right.
And not notoriety too.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you came out, and what happened when you got out? What made you change?
So I get out, I go back to Philly. So I go back to where my other cousin was now a neo-Nazi, and a bunch of guys who I recruited are now like higher ups in Philly, and they got their own crews. And I come home like a legend. Mm-hmm.
Because you had spent time in prison.
I kidnapped the Sharp. I kidnapped the Antifa to them. That's so. Which
again is very similar. Not to bring it back again, very similar to American History X. Yeah. That's what happened to the kid as well. Back like a hero. Yeah.
So people aren't hiring me. I'm not getting the callbacks. And a buddy of mine said, while I was still hanging with the neo-Nazis, he was also a neo-Nazi at the time. This guy said, hey, I can get you a job for a weekend carrying out antique furniture at the Cherry Hill, New Jersey Mall, just for the weekend. Do you want to do it? And he told me $100 a day. This is 1994, beginning of 94. I said, yeah, I'll take the job. I need money. And then as soon as I told him, he goes, "But I got to tell you, my boss is a Jew. Do you still want the job?" And he's like, he's Jewish. And Keith, the guy you're going to talk about, he isn't religiously Jewish, but he's definitely Upper East Coast. Like he said, oy vey, like, oh, oy vey, like that type of stuff. So he fits this. So my buddy goes, "Hey, this guy needs work. You need workers." He told me to hire a friend or two. And he's like, "But he's a Jew. Do you still want the job?" And I said to my friend, I was like, "Did you tell him about me?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I told him about you." I said, "Well, what did he say?" He said, "Keith said he doesn't give a rat's ass what you believe, just don't break his furniture." And I showed up and I met this man and I worked for him. And as I worked for him, he was a nice guy. You know, we had small conversations here and there. I was the 3-day job. I'm there all day carrying furniture in and out for him at these shows and at this little antique show and packing up the truck and all that stuff. And he was just a great guy. And he's also a Flyers fan, a hockey team again, just so you remember. So he was a big Flyers fan. And so was I. And so we had little small talks, like almost like the how's the weather type talks, like, "Oh, how about them Flyers draft picks this year?" You know, that was it. And then
you think this was the first like Jewish person that you actually spent time with?
Spend time with, yes, yeah. Yes. Wasn't like screaming. Actually, I needed him. I needed to get paid, you know? So it was like, almost through all the stuff that I've been through, the one thing that was instilled in me, it might sound crazy now, was manners, right? So I knew how to have manners in front of people, right? I wasn't going to call them a bad name or nothing, you know, just like whatever. And at the end of the weekend, and here's something that we all do, unless you're so spiritual, you'll float right off the planet. But will you ever have like that resentment at someone at work where you're like, you know what, today I'm going to tell that person off. And then you think about the argument and you have the argument in the car. You even practice it a little bit where you're like, well, when I see him, I'm going to say this. Well, I had that on my last day at work. I was like, you know what? He's probably not going to pay me my money because I had made $600 in tips. Like I made a lot of money in tips at the show. So I figured he knows that and he's going to say, you know, there's your money. You know, I planned out this whole big argument in my head and he comes up to pay me. And as he came up to pay me, he was like, "Hey, I owe you money." And I'm like, "Yeah, you do." You know, just kind of like waiting for him to say something different in a way. And I was like, "Yeah, you do." And he said, "How much?" I was like, $300. That's what, you know. And he's like, "Oh yeah." He goes, pulls out a lot of money. He made good money at the antique show. And he says, "Here's one, here's two, here's 300. You know, here's an extra $100." And I remember it. And I says, all I thought about was, you son of a gun, you're ruining it. I had put out landmines for him to step on the fight with him, to argue with him. And he gave me an extra $100.
Yeah, all the stereotypes came crashing down, right?
Well, yeah. Well, then he gives me a ride home because we're in South Jersey and I had to get back over to South Philly, and it was late that night and he had a big truck. And I remember, and you got to know Keith. He's an amazing man. We're still close to this day. And Keith said something about driving me home. I was like, "Well, yeah, I don't know if you want to bring this truck down to my neighborhood, you know, small streets and da-da-da." He had a big truck. And then Keith's fast. He's like, "For one, don't tell me what I can and can't do." So I said, okay. And he gave me a ride. And when we're in a ride in the truck, he's in the driver's seat. I'm in the passenger seat. My swastika is blazing right at him. And he just was talking to me. And he's like, "So what do you do for a living?" And I said, "I don't do anything." And he said, "Well, why don't you come work for me?" And I went and I worked for him for like 6 months.
Wow.
And he had a warehouse where he refinished furniture he had a system. He would buy furniture on the weekends or Mondays and Tuesdays, get them into the warehouses, get them all refinished, beautifully refinished. And then he would have them in his 2 storefronts. He had 2 storefronts in the malls. And so it was Keith's Limited Antiques. And so, on the Mondays and Tuesdays, he would come into the warehouse and be like, he'd always needed someone to go with him to go pick up furniture and put it on the truck. And he just picked me a lot. I was kind of like a utility guy anyway. I'd help the strippers. I would help strippers, meaning the furniture. Yes, yeah. Yes.
Do you think that he was doing this and giving you this opportunity because he saw it as an opportunity for to make somebody less hateful and to sort of create that bridge between you?
Keith says that now, and I believe him. He said that what his thing was, he said he's seen something different in me because he had hired another neo-Nazi before and he couldn't stand the guy. But he was a monk worker or whatever, but he liked me. And to give you an example of things, so when I used to drive in it, I used to go with him a lot in the truck because he paid for lunch. He was the boss, you know, he'd always pay for lunch. I was like, I'm going with him. And so when we were driving the truck at the time, just to give you a good old time frame when it was during the O.J. Simpson trial. So we were listening to news. We used to listen to news radio all the time, and it'd always be updates on the O.J. trial and DNA. And we talk. And so me and him would rap about DNA while we were in the truck and the incarceration system and this and that and just life and growing up and struggling. And he struggled as a person, as a human being. He had, you know, kicked his own habits and done all this stuff. And so I just remember liking the
him.
Yeah. And so I'll never forget though, like I'm still hanging out with neo-Nazis though. He would, after work, I would go hang out with neo-Nazis. And there were days after I was working for him for a while where I would go to like hang out with all my neo-Nazi friends and people would say stuff like, you know, I'll put a bullet in every Jew's head, you know. And I remember thinking, I didn't say it at the time because I'm not at that point in my life, but at the time I remember hearing it and I used to think like, I would jump in front of that bullet for Keith.
Oh, wow.
You know, and then there was other things that were just, when people would talk about all Black people are this way, I was also having these times in my life where I was like, I don't know about all. But the key, the one day was, no matter how tough I wanted to be, no matter how bravado I wanted, secretly deep down inside, I have low self-esteem and low self-worth. And I seriously think I'm stupid and dumb. And I could tell you that like, if I broke something, I would go, oh, I'm so dumb. Like it was my first defense, you know, so because I didn't want, so I was.
It's also what your stepfather said to you constantly, right?
Absolutely. I was told I was never going to be nothing more than a ditch digger. So I used to say that a lot. And one day I broke something and I said to Keith, oh, I'm so stupid. And Keith just came over and said, stop saying you're stupid, you idiot. Right. And we get into this truck and Keith remembers this conversation. We were driving in the truck after I broke something and I felt really bad and felt really stupid. See, because I was a self-deprecating narcissist. I would say bad things about myself, but if you repeated them back to me, you hurt my feelings.
Of course.
And so we're in the truck and Keith just says, he's going on about how smart I am in this truck ride through New Jersey. And as we're driving, he just looked at me and he's like, Frank, listen. Smart people can fake being dumb, but dumb people can't fake being smart. You're just smart, Frank. Get over it. And I remember like that hit me so hard, like so hard. I mean, I got out of that. He dropped me off and he gave me my full pay. That was another thing because I thought he was going to dock me pay for breaking something. You know what I mean? So this was such a huge moment and part of my life that people don't. I was willing to die for this movement, hardcore willing to die, thought I'd be a martyr, whatever. And he dropped me off and I had to walk about 2 miles back to my mom's house that day because I was back in my mom's. This is right out of prison, you know? And I remember walking and just thinking like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? Like, I had known that like, there have been enough people in my life that I'm beating my head against the wall to keep these beliefs. It's the belief, and it's very prevalent in America. It's, I hate all Black people except for John and Michael. And I hate all Latino people except for Hector and Jose. And
or it starts with, I have a Black friend even, or a gay friend. Yeah, right.
And as I was on that walk, I started thinking about how stupid that sounds. And so I had this walk home where I knew that I was not going to be called a neo-Nazi anymore. Like it was this overwhelming feeling inside of me where I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm wrong. I know that right now I'm grasping at straws to keep these beliefs just so I could keep my friends and keep this camaraderie. Like, I'm wrong. And so I started thinking like, how am I going to start saying to people in my neighborhood? Because I was this neo-Nazi, came back into town. You know, everyone knew I kind of went off somewhere, but these are all neighborhood guys I grew up playing football with and went to school with. They didn't get into any of this stuff. So, and I was starting to hang around some of them sometimes. And But anytime someone had a racist joke, they told me. Anytime there was a racist story, they told me, because I was this racist neo-Nazi guy, right? So like I started thinking, like, how am I going to start telling people I'm not that guy? And I just made this decision, like, I'm going to start telling people, if they say, hey, well, since you're a neo-Nazi, I'm going to start saying, no, I'm not. And it was this 2-mile long walk that I had that was just gut wrenching. And I was like, I'm just going to stop. Right. I'm going to stop hanging out with them. I'm going to stop preaching this stuff. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to do. But if I hear someone come over and say they want to tell me a racist joke, I'm going to stop them right now. Like, I just don't know what.
Yeah, because that's hard too, because that had become your identity, right? But it's so interesting to me that people talk a lot. Obviously, de-radicalization is very important. And I know you're involved in part of that work. Christian Picciolini also does a lot of de-radicalization work. And I remember Christian, one of the things he talks about is how it can take time, but it's actually not that complicated in terms of it's about listening. It's about seeing people, right? It's about, or for the person, it's about being seen and being listened to, and having somebody that wants to understand you. And in your case, like what Keith said to you, right? You are not dumb. You are actually quite smart. And it's somebody that finally sort of believed in you, you know, and saw you, and how that changed everything for you.
And it is. It's about, and I was blessed that because like Christian and myself, we used to help get people out, or we, you know, still in a way do. And sometimes people don't have anyone else. That's all they have at home. I happen to be blessed enough that I had, like, again, they're neighborhood racist-y guys, but I had a whole neighborhood to go back to who, again, second, and down in South Philly, everyone's related. Like, we're all like second cousins, third cousins, marriage cousins, this cousin, we're all, and I was blessed. And it's just like the same thing with a lot of people that got into the white supremacist world. And I've heard this a lot, like they did it because it pissed off people at school. They wanted to piss off their parents. They were just rebelling. They were angry. This is the truth for me and for some others. I got into this world for survival. That's why I grabbed onto it and was like, this is it. This is my life. Like, it was survival for me.
Yeah. I mean, it was also protection, right? I mean, as a kid who's like every time you went home, somebody beat the crap out of you. Like, you needed a group, you needed protection.
And fist fighting the black kids at school, you know? Like, like it was absolutely.
What was it difficult then having, I mean, because this had become your identity and so many of your friends, this was part of who they were as well. How difficult was it to then extricate yourself from all of that?
You know, it was hard in that a lot of my friends like stopped talking to me and, you know, said bad things about me and whatever. Again, it's what I mean. I was blessed. I had a whole neighborhood of guys who I grew up with who took me right back in. You know, and now again, a lot of my South Philly friends. But
took you back in as a neo-Nazi,
just as a neighborhood guy, because I was from the neighborhood. So, you know, I went to school with them. And so it was like, now, again, I told you my neighborhood was infested with Xanax. And so there's a lot of drug addiction. And when I was a neo-Nazi, we weren't allowed to do no drugs. So when I got out of the neo-Nazis, I was like, whoa, here's a whole new freedom for me. And I explored it and wound up getting, you know, addicted myself. Like, so.
When did you start sharing your story and why?
So it was it was actually don't even say it's a celebration. The anniversary of Oklahoma City bombing just happened. It was April 19th. So it was April 19th, 1995, where the bombing went off in the house. I mean, at this federal building. And I write about this in my book, and there's other people that will testify to this or give witness to this. I was sitting in a house full of my friends, and the bombing thing comes. Actually, I heard about it at the store. I was at a store, and a buddy that was at this local corner deli was like, had the news on, and there was like the smoke coming up. And I was like, what happened? He goes, I think some Arabs bombed a building in Oklahoma. I was like, wait, Oklahoma? And I just started thinking, and I said, I don't know about that. So anyway, I went back home. Again, I'm not racist anymore. I'm getting rid of the views, and things are happening to me that are helping me get rid of these views. And I went back to my friend's house and was sitting there with a bunch of friends of mine, and it was on the news. It was on every channel, you know, and I said to them, as it started to come out that it was a truck bomb, I looked at my friends and I said, I might know who did this. And my friends who, again, they were all neighborhood guys who knew that I had gone somewhere for a couple of years. They didn't know where I went. I didn't run around bragging to people, hey, I used to live in neo-Nazi compounds. I just had this swastika thing on my neck that people knew, like, Frank went off the deep end somewhere. We don't know where he went. Now he's back in the neighborhood, that type of stuff, right? And I looked at them and I said, I might know who did this. And the next day, before they caught Timothy McVeigh, I walked into the FBI building in Philly.
Wait, did you know Timothy McVeigh?
I didn't know Timothy McVeigh. Nope.
But you thought maybe
I thought I was going to know him because we had talked about that bombing, that type of bombing. And that's what I was so radicalized. I want people to understand this, that when I was at one of our safe houses or one of our things, and we were sitting around talking about the race war, and someone would said, hey, Frank, we have the keys to a U-Haul. Will you drive it to a federal? I would have said yes. I would have been like, foot soldier. I'm a soldier, you know. Yes, let's start the race, because this is how they wanted to start the race war. It wasn't like white versus black. It was white versus the federal government so that they can run their own part. That's the race war, right? That's so I started thinking I was going to know who did this, and I went to the FBI, and then they catch Timothy McVeigh, and I don't know him, but I knew that we went through some of the same circles, right? And so have that. What it is.
And you decided then, okay, it's time to start telling my story.
So the FBI, after a while, and the federal marshals who wanted me to be like an informant. And I was like, I don't have any knowledge. I've been out for 6 months. Everyone in the movement hates me. I can't just all of a sudden only show back up. Like, and I didn't want, I really just wanted the FBI to regurgitate my life to somebody, because nobody else was going to believe me where I'd been. None of my neighborhood friends would have been like, whatever, another neighborhood story. And I knew that the FBI would believe me, and they knew, and they did. They knew who I was. I mean, they had files on me, you know? So when I went to them and they listened to me for a while, and they seen that there was something different about me. So then they sent me over to the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, which is a civil rights group at the time. And, I went and I spoke with some of them, and then they asked me to go speak to this group. And then I spoke to this group, and then the one guy said, well, you go speak to my daughter's class. And I went and I spoke to these kids, and I think there was like 4th grade or something, 5th grade, something around that time, that age. And I was horrible. Like all I did was talk about violence. I didn't know what to say. I didn't have any real solution to anything. I didn't have a message. I just had a mess that I was sharing. I was sharing a mess, and I was scarring those children that left them. I was just scarred for you know, scarring that one. She's not going to sleep for a week, right? So
this kid's going to have nightmares for life.
I'm surprised I still haven't got bills for their psychiatry. So, but I what happened when I got done with that? And I remember I was crying, talking to them, and I was crying.
Poor guy.
I was crying, and I'll never forget
this. This is a terrible idea.
Yeah, I wiped, and it's disgusting, but I wiped my nose inside because I was snot. I was crying, talking to these kids, and I never forget. I wiped the snot because no one would get me a tissue. They were probably like, F this Nazi, right? I don't know. But I put my shirt back down, and it stuck to my body. And I'll never forget, I did the whole talk with my shirt stuck to me because it had snot on it, right? And I'm just like bawling, like coming to terms with some things. And
just imagine like the 10-year-olds looking at you thinking, what is happening? What's this doing?
So, but when I got done, the guy who brought me said, man, you did a really good job. He's like, you actually.
Oh, so you're good. Okay.
He's like, you're really good. And I'll never, and then I spoke a couple more times to kids, high schools and stuff. And I just felt better. I was like, I don't just want to be a person who goes around and says, hey, look at me. I used to do bad things. I don't do bad things no more. Hey, give me a cookie. So I was like, I want to do something. I want to do something. So I met up with the Philadelphia Flyers, who I mentioned a couple of times in my story.
Hockey team.
Yeah. And I told him about how when I was in prison, I was the owner's son and a couple higher ups in the Flyers were at this dinner thing I was at that the ADL invited me to. And I sat at the same table with them and we talked. And I had a great, amazing lawyer friend named Michael Bonney, who was like part of the ADL, but was a lawyer on his own and an amazing attorney. And we became friends. And so I was talking to them about how I put all this stuff to the side to play sports in prison. And I said, and I can do that. And so we pitched a thing to the Flyers doing Harmony Through Hockey, where we went in some of the rougher neighborhoods of Philly and started getting black and white kids to play the game. And that's how my story got out there. This is 1995, 96.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
And then that's how my people started hearing about me more. And I was running this hockey program for a while. And so...
Yeah. I mean, so much of it is that it's like the silos that you live your life in, right? And the lack of contact that you have with other people. I was just remembering, like, when we did our white supremacy story, we interviewed a kid. I mean, he wasn't a kid. He was not a kid, but he was young. And he was, did you ever come across a guy called James Mason?
I know that name.
Yeah, he wrote like a book that is used, like a very racist and very Nazi, pro-Nazi book. I can't remember the name of the book, but it was used a lot. I mean, it's used by
the base,
and
and other groups. Yep.
And so we interviewed this guy who, showed up in the full like Nazi uniform and the Nazi flag and
winner.
Yeah, it was just, you had a sense like so much of his world had been. Yeah, I just kept on thinking like, he said some horrible things about he talked about race war, how inciting violence and the importance. I think at one point he talked about the importance of killing minorities, and I asked him, "Are you saying this for shock value only?" And he said, "No. I mean, if there's an invasion happening in your country, you're not going to welcome them. You're going to kill them." That's basically what he said. And the whole time I was thinking. First of all, I was thinking he's just putting on a show for me. I can't believe, it's like hard for me to believe that people actually have these ideals and that they actually believe this crap that they're saying. But also I was thinking like, I don't think this guy has ever had any contact with, Jewish or Black or a meaningful contact, not like just passing by, but like, because so many of the stories of reformed people like you and Christian and so many others, like it changes once you have meaningful contact with a person that you're taught to hate, right? And realize that this is just another human being. Yeah. It's not a monster. He's just another human being who's like trying his best to be happy just like you are.
Yeah. Sharing this planet, you know.
So the more of that exists, the more, and the problem with nowadays and online, which as Christian talks about all the time, it's an all-you-can-eat hate buffet.
Yep.
It's exactly the wording he uses, is that you become more and more isolated. It's less time that you're spending out on the streets. It's less opportunities of you to actually spending meaningful time with the people that you're taught to hate or, start hating. And it just increasingly more dangerous, which explains why we're living at a time of extremism. More white supremacy is just growing. Racism, unfortunately, is growing, and all throughout the world, not just here in the U.S., but all throughout the world. Yeah, and it's part of that, and it's sad. Yeah, because the solution is not that hard.
Yeah, and I think that. Yes, it's growing.
It's more than sad. It's fucking tragic.
Yeah. It's tragic. And maybe it's just the way that I live my life today and the things that I see now is that I think we're going to go back. Like there's just a pendulum right now.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And, because from the KKK all the way up until the Proud Boys, you could just look that it always morphs. Right. It goes from the KKK to these Nazi groups, then it went to then neo-Nazis, and then that came around. And all these groups kept doing little bad things that would give them bad names. And so then the next group has to morph different. And it just keeps happening. But it's still that same fear. Yeah. You can hear it. You can hear it in the one. It's like, they're coming to destroy my country. It's like. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. It's like, it's the great replacement theory, which is huge these days, which is this idea that the white race is being replaced.
And the great replacement theory, it's true. We are all going to be replaced here. And as we all live here long enough.
By AI, by the way.
By AI. But also in the next 50 years, we're going to see it even more, no matter what happens. And in the next 300 years, the mixed race American is going to be one of the most prevalent races in America.
Yeah,
and in 1,000 years, we're all going to be this mixed race.
How great is it going to be? Everything's going to be better.
Then it won't be race war. It's going to be class war,
Yeah.
which we might need a little bit.
That there is no federal statute that labels white supremacist groups as domestic terrorists. So there isn't actual laws or legislation that helps law enforcement then go after these groups in a way that you can with, say, a foreign terrorist organization.
Right.
Like Trump just designated the cartels in Mexico. But what you can do if there's an Al-Qaeda member or an ISIS member in the U.S. is very different than what you can do with a group like the Timothy McVeighs of the world, right? That are actually responsible for a lot of violence in this country.
I just tell people this story, just you can believe it, it doesn't matter. Again, I don't have to prove anything of this sort to anybody, but I was leaving, I was in the middle of divorce and I was dating this woman, poor woman. I'm insane at the time in the middle of this divorce and relapsing. But I found because by this time I find that I'm Jewish.
How did you find that out, by the way?
Yeah, we can go back. So I found that I was Jewish. It started with, I was doing a documentary about the spirituality diversity of Iowa. Now, have you ever been to Iowa?
I have, yeah.
You know, not diverse.
No, not diverse at all.
It's white people, corn and soybeans and pigs. I mean, that's like their
plains.
Yeah. So that's where I was living. That's again where I was living for a while. South Philly kid living in Iowa. But anyhow, my book comes out, and so I go do this documentary about the spiritual diversity of Iowa. Just to give you an example, the oldest standing mosque in all of North America is in Iowa. It's in Cedar Rapids. It's called Mother Mosque number one. There's like all these really cool little spots about the Maharishi University where people go to learn to do TNM meditation. That's in Iowa. And people come from all over the world to live in this small little farm town to go to this school, right? The university, the Maharishi University. So we were doing a documentary about that, me and a buddy of mine, called Is This Heaven? It never came to air, but because a lot of this stuff, again, just wasn't my time. But in that time, there was a rabbi in Des Moines, Iowa, who was a fan of my book, and his restaurant, his little diner, or it wasn't even a diner, it was like a deli with seating area. It was right by my house in Iowa, and we become friends over the years because he read my book and knew my story. And the one day we go in and I said, hey, would you be part of this documentary? So the Jewish part of the story. And he says, Rabbi Jacobson says to me, are you going to do a documentary about how you're Jewish? And I was like, I'm not Jewish, you know? And he's like, well, you should look into your last name, Meeink, the way it's spelled. It's spelled very weird, Meeink, which, by the way, is not Jewish, but it set me on this little path. So on social media, I put out a thing saying, hey, this rabbi keeps saying that my last name is Jewish. My family starts chiming in. My uncle chimes in and says, like, I told you this. And he did. When I was 14, my uncle took me, he's a 30-year Navy veteran guy, loves the military guy, big military guy. He took me out to dinner when I first became a neo-Nazi and was having all these talks with me about how, like, if I want to join something, I should join the military. That's the biggest gang in the world. And, you know, and I always felt that he's seen it wasn't, by that time I was so in that nothing you could say was going to get me out, right? And I remember at the end of the dinner we had, just me and him, he said, oh, and by the way, you can't be a neo-Nazi, you're Jewish. And I was like, what was he going to say? I'm black. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I wouldn't. You were never going to believe that. So I didn't believe that neither. I was like, whatever, you know, you're just saying whatever to, you know, just to not let me be this neo-Nazi I want to be, you know. And so funny thing was, he chimes in, he goes, I told you this. Yeah. And then my aunts and uncles start all chiming in and they're like, yeah, we had our great-great-grandma Elizabeth Zellman is Jewish, right? So I go back to the rabbi and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I could tell, you know, whatever. He's just like, I could tell. So that's how I first found that. And I believed it. I was like, okay, this is true. And I tell people when they say, how did you find out by DNA? Because I did find out when I took a DNA test later.
You did, and it was confirmed.
It was confirmed. Yeah, it was confirmed. Ashkenazi. And I loved it because it was like exactly almost 20 years since I got out of the neo-Nazis that I find that I was Jewish. And it also like shows you how ridiculous it all is. Right? Yes. And also I was like, I wonder why I always had that activism, because I've always been an activist. Like, it just, even when I was a neo-Nazi, like I was just an activist, you know? I was like, it was this bug, you know, the bug in me. And as a lot of my Jewish friends will say now are like, yeah, you just had a lost Jewish soul floating around doing trouble.
And nowadays you're a practicing Jewish
Practicing,
person,
yes,
right?
I'm practicing.
Yeah.
And keep kosher, keep Shabbos. And that goes to what happened in Iowa. I'm dating this girl during my divorce who's this Jewish girl because I was like, I want to try and look into this Jewish thing. I'm crazy at the time. I'm in the most pain I've ever been in my life. It's only in 2019. Like the skinhead stuff was bad. All that stuff was bad. I had hit rock bottom. Like, and anyway, dating this girl, and I leave her house one day. Both my careers are gone. Public speaking is gone. My hockey career is gone. The divorce is going horrible. I got arrested during the divorce for breaking a no contact order. I refereed, not to ever justify it, I shouldn't have done what I did, but I refereed a hockey tournament so I could see my kid during the divorce because she had we both had no contacts on us. You know, she had the first one. We had no contact, and I refereed a hockey tournament so I could see my kid. And she showed up to the hockey because it was, you know, it's her son playing too. And I was supposed to leave, and I didn't leave. And we had words, and you know, again, no violence, and I got arrested. So again, like I'm at the bottom, like I promised myself I'd never be in those places again. And here I am, you know, with breaking a no contact order, which was just so. So I left this girl's house one day, and I couldn't go home anymore because of the no contact, and the divorce was so bad that I was driving to a buddy's house of mine. And I started driving, and I started crying uncontrollably. Like these overwhelming feelings were coming to me like, this is all you, dude. Like you did this. Like not that my son died, you know, that I didn't do that, but I didn't accept it the right way. I didn't have a spiritual defense to not act only about thinking about myself. Because that's part of alcoholism. It's a self-centered, self-seeking disease. And just so much of it, I look back. And so as I was driving, I started crying uncontrollably, and I couldn't drive anymore. I had to pull over because I couldn't see. I was just bawling so much. And so I pulled over, and I started screaming. My cousins had just killed themselves. Two really close cousins of mine. Both, one was my best man at my wedding. He killed himself. And so I was just bawling, crying in this car, and I was screaming up to God to please kill me. I was as serious as can be. I was like, please kill me. I'm not going to kill myself. I don't want my children to think, you know, because that when you kill yourself, the pain doesn't go away. You pass it down, right? And so I knew that. So I'm just like, please, God, please just kill me. Like, let me die in like a car accident. Let a telephone pole fall on me. Please, God. And as I'm screaming up to God, my phone rings, and it's the girl I'm dating. And when I picked up the phone, she's crying on the phone. And I'm like, what, you know, she's doesn't see what's going on. So I'm like, what's wrong? And she said, my sister just killed herself. Why I'm in the middle screaming to God to kill me. And so I hang up the phone. And as I hang up the phone, and again, there's people that don't believe, that have no faith, or that faith, it doesn't matter. A voice came in the car and just said, get to California. I have work for you. That's all the voice said. I looked, it was my dashboard on there. I'm looking at my dad, and for people can say, well, maybe I was just crazy and there was a little snapped, right? But ever since I listened to this voice, and so I flew here to LA and started to work with this man who said, I'm just going to walk you hand in hand closer to God. And then your job is to reach your hand back and walk other men closer to God in this program. And right after I got here, the pandemic hits. And I'm living in a really rough neighborhood. I didn't move to Los Angeles. I moved to LA. You know, they're different. They both need each other, but that's where I lived. I lived in LA. And then the pandemic hit, and I started to do this thing. And what happened was then the government calls me. They were like, hey, we heard that you know some white supremacists who got into policing. Will you come testify in a congressional hearing? And I was like, yep, I'm going to do it. I'm okay to do this now. And I went and I testified in front of a congressional hearing on white supremacists infiltrating the police departments. Wow.
What was that like?
It was amazing. There were people that were in that hearing that I idolize, and ones who I think that are really bad for the country. And idolize is a big word. You know, people that
admire.
Admire. Thank you. And after I got done, like I think within the night, I got my first death threat. then there was a protest because it was during the uprising.
Because it was televised, like people saw it.
Yeah, it was on C-SPAN.
Right.
It was being
right.
It was kind of a big thing, I guess. I was at this protest in downtown LA, and I noticed the police car, these guys kept kind of like cutting me off and getting in front of me and like trying to like bump me. And I crossed the street and on Cherry downtown. And this cop car cut right in front of me and stopped. It was the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I have this on video, so it's not. And this cop gets out of the car and he calls me by name. He's like, "Hey, Frank." I was like, "What?" And he goes, something about beating my ass or something. So me being the smart mouth that I am, because I have a very smart mouth, especially when I'm cornered like that. And I said something back to him about good luck with that type of thing. And I had said something earlier at my talk about the Fourth Amendment. Mm. So he mentioned that. And I was like, yeah, someday we'll get our Fourth Amendment back. And he goes, not you. He's like, you're just going to get our Second Amendment right. I'm going to blow your fucking brains out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this happened.
Holy
I got the end of this on video.
Did you report him?
Yeah, well, reported it to the guys right there because when he got out of his car and was confronting me, all these other Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department.
Did he get in trouble?
No. They came up and they surrounded me. So the cops start pushing me and they're like, get over there with the protest. And I'm like, yo, God, your boy right here just threatened to kill me. And they're like, Frank, and now they know me.
Yeah.
And they're like, Frank, get back over with the protest. Because I walked away from the protest. I was actually walking home. And so then I grabbed my phone and pulled it out and I ran back over to him. I was like, yo, man, you just threatened to kill me. You just threatened to kill me. And he said the same. He's like, Frank, get back over with the protest. And these other cops start yelling at me again. And, he didn't once say, just so people don't, he didn't once say, I never said that. Or he didn't say, and he was just like, get back. I was like, dude, you just threatened to kill me.
Right. He's not going to say that when you're recording.
Right. And so then I walked home and then they followed me home. They followed me home and were like letting me know that they were following me home.
And so is this why you then went into hiding?
And then I went into hiding.
For 2 years, you said?
Yeah,
right?
2 years.
Right. Shit. That is crazy.
That was the first time we met right after that happened. Yeah. But I don't think I told you because I wasn't telling people I was in hiding. I was, because it was, but yeah, I had to go into hiding.
And you don't think there's any problem with you now?
I think
is there like an official report? Have you officially filed a report against this person?
No. That way, look, they investigate themselves.
Right.
And it's the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, which was known for its white supremacist gangs and its gangs.
Yeah,
that's real. That's not
There's been a lot of reporting.
It's not a theory. That. It's not a scandal. It's real. All right.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. There's been a lot of reporting on that. I have a question for you, a couple of questions for you,
Sure.
which is, one is actually by our Patreon member, Armando Alberto Carrillo Rodriguez, who says, what's something that you know now, besides the obvious, like gangs are bad and racism is wrong, but that you would have liked to have known when you started in the white supremacy movement?
It's a good question,
right?
I love it. I love that question. So I can tell you today, especially with my practice of keeping God in my life, but God is, people go, oh, here we go, religion, but I'm not going to get there. But I want to say this is that there's a thing that I do when I take a God walk every morning. It's about an hour-long God walk every morning. And I pray. But while I'm praying in an hour of time, like any other human being, well, especially ones that have alcoholism and drug addiction, have that bug in them, I think about myself too much. Like I'll start thinking, man, I reached out to so-and-so yesterday and they said they were going to get back to me and then they didn't. And now I start thinking about that person. I'm like, you know what, man, F that guy. What? You know what? And two weeks ago, I said something to him and he kind of rolled his eye. You know what, man, I don't like him. And then I go and my brain starts to go, right? Because someone didn't do what I wanted, right? And so God gave me this gift and anyone can use it. It's not trademarked. It's not, it's the word stay. So I get to go, Frank, stay, Frank. And stay stands for stop thinking about yourself.
That's a good one.
And so I do that a lot throughout my day.
Oh, that's a really good one.
The thing that I had to learn that I hopefully can relate to this gentleman is that I have to stop taking things so personally.
Yeah. And seeing yourself as a victim.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's a huge part, again, of the character defect of alcoholism. And I always get back, because that's one of my other jobs is working in that realm and being very, very, very active in recovery. So that's one thing is stop taking everything so personal. People are just living their life. The reason why my buddy didn't text me back when he said because he has a life and he had things to do. He just didn't get it. Wasn't like, I'm going to do this to get back at Frank, you know, because then 2 days later he'll get back to me and I'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't get back to you. And for 2 days I sat around and thought about how much I hate the guy, right? And now I'm like, oh, thank you for calling me back. You know what I mean? So that's a lot of so it's just not take.
I love that. Stay.
Stop thinking about yourself.
That. I like that a lot. And then one of the last things I wanted to say is that I had no idea, but Amanda Wheeler, who's one of our listeners, basically informed me that you are now married.
Yes.
To Allison Mack, who, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at me as if I'm saying something wrong.
No.
Allison Mack, who's from Smallville, actress, and who then got caught up in the whole NXIVM cult. And how did you guys meet and how's it going?
It's going amazing. Yes, me and Allison met at a dog park in our section of town. Yeah. And I had no idea who she was. Like I didn't. I never watched Small. I seen the documentaries about that, but
I did too. Yeah.
Yeah. The person that I seen wasn't. So it never clicked. Like, oh, that's the girl from the no idea. And she had a pit bull with. I love pit bulls. I don't own a pit bull anymore. It's funny, the dog I do own. But so we're at this dog.
Is it a Chihuahua?
No, it's a half poodle, half long haired Jack Russell Terrier. Okay. That was a rescue who lived on the boat with me. I adopted him from the pound. And he lived on the boat with me. So I love me and this dog have a good record. And so anyhow, she had this pit bull who had like white fur and beautiful pink skin. So my opening line, which is a little creepy in a way, it was like, wow, your dog has beautiful pink skin, right? Being that I'm a former racist, it came off, you think about it, like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? But that's what happened. Not a great opening. Yeah, well, not a great opening. And I didn't even see her yet because the dog came up to me first and I just seen a person coming in the fence of the dog park. And I was like, oh, your dog's got beautiful pink skin. And I looked up and she was like, thank you. And I was smitten a little bit. She's beautiful. Beautiful. And so I was like, whoa. And so we started talking and she said to me, are you from New York? Because you heard my accent. And I was like, no, I'm from Philly. Like it offends me when you say something like that. So I was like, no, I'm from Philly. She's like, oh, I love Philly, the Rodin Museum. And she's going over all these like artsy, actor-y. Yeah. And she's like, you ever gone to this? And I'm like, that's not my part of Philly, man. I'm sorry. And she's like, oh my God. So I worked at a Thai food restaurant not far from there. So I started telling her, I was like, hey, she said Allison. I said, my name's Frank and, whatever. And I said, hey, you should come to my restaurant. Whenever you get a chance. I was saying my restaurant. It wasn't like my restaurant. I just kind of, yeah. But, I wasn't going to say like, oh, but I was like, hey, you should come to my restaurant. Yeah. And she said, okay, I will. Maybe on Thursday. Me and my mom go out to eat every Thursday night. And I said, okay. And just tell you, like, I couldn't stop thinking about her. That was on a Sunday. And then she showed up on Tuesday. With her mom. Thursday, she showed up with her mom. And, I had told all the Thai girls I work with, because I worked there for a couple of years, and it's an amazing, amazing place. And so I had told all the women I worked with in the front that I said, if this woman comes in, I want you to act like I'm like the big manager. I was like, can you play this off for me? And they're like, yeah, all right. So they kept calling me Mr. Frank. They're like, all right, Mr. Frank. All right, Mr. Frank. Right. That's funny. So, which I right away told her. So I wasn't like trying to lie. I was joking. It was great that the girls all played a part with me. But just started talking with her. And as we were talking, she asked me what I was into, and I said, well, I'm real into prison reform. I'm real into, fighting against racism and anti-Semitism. And she's like, oh, I'm formerly incarcerated. And she's beautiful, right? So I'm thinking, well, she probably drugged me. Or I'm not going to ask her. She's, just not the time. Her mom's sitting right there. I'm not going to be like, hey, what'd you do? So I didn't say anything. And then we kind of hung out that night. And again, had no idea. So then the third, I gave her my email because played it. I wasn't going to give her my phone number. I was going to be a little classy here. You know what I mean? I'm a classy guy. So I gave her my email and I said, hey, I'd love to hear more. I'd love to talk more with you. And then she emailed me on Sunday. And that's when I was like, you know what? let me Google this, because it still didn't ring. I mean, I seen her full name. It still didn't go, oh my God, I know that story. It wasn't and I Googled her, and I was like, oh shit.
It's that person that I'd seen in that documentary that got in trouble. Yeah, she did time in prison. Yeah. I would love to interview her, by the way, if you wanted to ask her if she wants to come on the podcast.
She likes to.
Does she talk about?
Nope. She did a podcast telling her side of the story, not even like defending herself. I don't know if you ever heard of a podcast that she did. She did one with the BBC, with the Canadian broadcasting system. She did one called Allison Mack After NXIVM, because she was like, I just want to get, and her story out. Yeah, and she doesn't like say like I was a huge victim. She's honest. She says I was, I used my celebrityism to do this. I could just, if people don't want to listen or believe it, but I've been in and around these groups and around this type of stuff and de-radicalizing people. She was completely radicalized.
Oh yeah,
and brainwashed that this guy was.
I believe. I mean, I know. I mean, we've had occult victims here as well, and to me, it reminds me so much always of. Strange way of scam victims, the way that they're brainwashed into believing these things. The problem with cults is that then you can also hurt other people. But anyway. Two
things I want to talk to you before we go, and I hope that you keep it part of the podcast. You can if you can. It's your world. I'm just here to do a message. There are places now, because with all the Trump people that are leaving right now, and there's MAGA people that are leaving. And I know a lot of my friends who are very anti-MAGA, who are just like, F those people. And I don't tell anyone else what to do in this world. I gave that up a long time ago. I just could tell you that I believe that it's showing them grace as they're leaving. And I just had this conversation yesterday where someone said, no, those people are the reason why we're in this shit. And I say, but they might also be the reason we can get out of this shit. Is that we show them grace. There's places that we've already met that people don't understand. There's like First Amendment auditors. Have you ever done anything with those guys yet? Or?
I've seen them around here. Yeah. And they're not nice. They're not pleasant. No. Let's just say. They like stick cameras in your face and they start filming you at the farmer's market. And then if you say something, can you please not film? I mean, it's literally a camera feet from my face as I'm coming out of a sweaty gym class or something, Yeah. And I saw like mothers with strollers, and they put the camera like filming the little babies in the strollers, and the mother like, what are you doing? Can you please stop doing that? And then they start yelling and calling you a Karen and yelling at you and saying it's their right to film. Right. I don't know what the point is.
So, and I'm going to, now there's ones that, again, with all groups that are not good, obviously. But I'm going to tell you that I run and know about 50 of them.
Okay.
And throughout the country, all over the country. And also the cop watchers who go out and just record cops, right? Because of what they've done, and I want people to know this, that politically, they have no political stand. There's the left wing, the right wing, they're huge constitutionalists, they're huge libertarians. This consistent activism, now again, I'm sorry for what you went through, and I know that there are people, just like in every group. But the ones that I know act a little bit different.
But what's the point?
The point is that yes,
there are eyes and ears everywhere. Or what's
the point is that they are trying to get the police to come.
For what?
Because it's proving to people, and now a lot of people think that people just do this for clickbait, and
that's what I thought, that they were trying to like get views on their YouTube.
Yeah, if you look and if you talk to a lot of the guys who have big channels right now and big networks, they're not into that. What they're into is educating other Americans to know that we have rights that have been tread on for a long time. So
if the police comes, they can show on video that they have every right to be doing what they're doing. I find it incredibly obnoxious. Sorry. What they're doing is obnoxious. I hope the police is spending time and resources from our tax-paying dollars to actually do things that are useful to protect us, and not to be called into the farmer's market because people like me are upset that they have a camera on my face.
Yeah. And
as a person who films around the world, by the way, I am very careful with who I film, getting permission from the people that I'm filming. I'm very aware of like privacy.
Yeah.
And so it just bothers me the way they go about it.
No, and I get that. And there is a thing right now where we're trying to show, like, a lot of the guys I know, they film prisons.
Are you a First Amendment officer?
I've gone out.
Oh my God, Frank, this is not where I wanted to end this interview.
No, I've definitely gone out, and the guys that I've worked with and talked with and deal with, mostly deal with prisons, filming prisons, or filming traffic stops.
As in, they want to film those things.
They want to film the traffic stops because they're
so they can keep an eye on what the police is doing.
Yeah,
and I just think there's easier and probably more
and so
useful ways.
I absolutely get that, and
effective.
I understand.
Yeah.
But what's happening now is that because of
and
these,
less obnoxious.
Yeah, no, they're good. I definitely, I would tell you that because of this consistent, I call it almost activism, is that now every police department and police academy teaches about First Amendment auditors and what are they doing. Now, again, the police academies aren't teaching that, like, hey, these people are just trying to teach people their rights. They're saying, like, they're just obnoxious and they're just trying to clickbait. But in a way, they're teaching them, because you ask a lot of cops, what's the 5 elements of our First Amendment? They have no idea.
Yeah, so it's getting the First Amendment to be high up on the education list.
Yeah, and it's
the awareness,
and it's across all groups. It's seriously, there's left wingers, there's right wingers that do it. There's these libertarians, there's constitutionalists that do it. All these people that are doing. I also have a couple of friends that do banks a lot. They sit outside a bank and record, and they do it because they know that the police are going to come, and it's people standing up. So that's one way that when activism. And again, most of these people don't do harm. They don't hurt anyone, we're connecting like together.
Yeah.
And then the other spot is like, just want to mention this. And I know that America, we're not the bad guys the rest of the world thinks we are, but we're not the good guys we think we are,
It's very true.
It's very true. And one of the things that we have to remember that America, the recovery programs, because now I'm very involved in studying the history, and it's only 90 years old, recovery, the 12-step programs, right? The 12-step program, it started with one with alcohol, and now there's 1,000 A groups. There's 1,000 12-step programs. They're all around the world. You can't go to a country that there's not a 12-step program somehow, right? It's free. And this program it's almost an American thing, but it's been given to the world for free. And they say, and even Time, I think it was Time that's at one of the magazines said, it's the most spiritual movement of the 20th century. Because it's this, people always say, is it a cult? I have a good idea what cults are. But it's not. It says in this book, it says, we're just an altruistic movement of people who said, for me to not live that way. And it's all about walking others to God, because the 12th step is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We now carry this message to alcoholics or whatever group you want to, other codependents, and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. And when you go to those rooms, people are of different political views, but we have one common goal: to help the next person coming in that door.
Yeah.
And we put all that stuff. So there's things here that we're working as we do as Americans, that I believe that when we start getting people out, or people start leaving this MAGA movement, and us showing each other grace, that we can do this. I truly believe that we can do this.
Yeah, I'm an optimist too. I think things will go better, become better. And I think, it is a pendulum. And unfortunately, that pendulum is on the extremist side right now, on both ends of the aisle, by the way.
Yeah.
But it has been a lovely conversation.
Yeah, it's long. Sorry.
Frank, no, I mean, I asked the questions. I'm here for it. I was so interested in your story. Thank you so much for sharing your story with me.
Thank you.
Frank.
Thank you so much.
And I'm going to ask you, I was just thinking throughout the interview how so many people depict you as sort of the person that loosely inspired American History X, that I can't put that anymore, but I could always title it The Real American History X.
Sure, you can do that.
Because that is, you lived a real life. Maybe it wasn't inspired by you, but your story is very similar to the events, and you're the real person who went through this, got out, spent time in prison because of being part of the movement, got out, and is doing your very best to
And if anyone
to reform yourself and to make amends and to change people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And just when I don't try to sell my book, I'm not trying to, I'm very anti-grifter. Mm-hmm. So I'm not here to be like, hey, and also come to my show with this. I
will
just
do it for you. Though.
No. But I wanted people to know that book,
which is autobiography of a recovering skinhead,
was vigorously fact checked when we released that book. Like our publisher, we had hired people and people checked down things. And there's people from prison who wrote to my publisher and people that wrote and said, hey, I'm this guy in this book. Like, so this all really happened.
Yeah. Oh, I know that.
Really happened.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I encourage everybody to buy the book.
You could do that.
And I will do that too. I haven't yet.
Okay.
Should have said.
I would have brought you one if I had one.
So. Frank, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
On The Hidden Third.
Thank you.